we are doing some practical work, and some of our members didn't have much details about their companies and all that. So we are under a test environment. Do those people have to re-register again using the exact information which comes from their companies?
Okay, thank you, Hussein. I think you're a bit ahead of us. If you look at the program, we are going to look at that. But just to answer you, the system has two parts. We have a test environment and we have a production environment. The test environment is for training, is for you to try out, is for you to test how to use the system. So those accounts will always be there. And if you put in dummy information, you can always adjust it to actual information. Now, we also have a production environment, or what you call the live reporting environment. That is the one you use to report actual information to FIA. Now, that environment is the one that is when you submit data, that data is verified to ensure that it's accurate, so that the user, because that will be the actual information of the accountable person, of the Forex Bureau, of the money remittance company that will be stored in the FIA databases, and it's verified. So I hope that answers your question. So in the training, even this training, we are going to do the test environment, but for you to get access to the production environment, you submit those requirements, and then your application on the production environment will be approved. So for training, we'll have the test environment. We won't request any documentation to check or request you to submit certificate of incorporation. No. For the test, we are simply granting you access to the test environment. But for production, those requirements have to be met before your organization is registered and before your users are also accepted. Maybe just to reiterate again, it's important that you note that we are going through a re-registration exercise. So those of you on goAML, that is fine. You're already with us. You'll be issued with what we call e-certificates. Those who are not yet on goAML, you're going to have to register on the production environment, and you'll be issued with another e-certificate. So that circular is on our website. So just Google Financial Intelligence Authority and you go to our website. Under the news section, you'll have access to that circular. Thank you. Any other question? I see another hand is up.
Yes. Good morning.
Good morning.
Sharon Musimenta is my name. Director Verizon Forex Bureau Mbara.
Okay.
If you don't mind, myself, I've never registered on FIA. I tried, because the last time BOU came for inspection, they found I wasn't compliant and they gave me the guidelines on how to go about it. But when I tried, I failed, and even the few numbers I was given never helped me. So if you don't mind, can you please take me through where I can go, how to register and how to get enrolled?
Okay, Madam Musimenta, that's part of why we are here. That's part of the training, and we'll go through it. I hope that answers your question.
It's okay.
Yes, it's part of the training, and I'll request us to all be attentive. If you have any questions, you do ask, because registration will be the first part. If you look at the agenda, this is the first part of what we shall be doing.
Host, if I may ask, the meeting is going to go on for how long?
The agenda was shared. Let me just share it again. Let me just allow me to share the agenda. We are also recording this so that it can be accessed later. So that's the beauty with online. So that's the agenda for today. It's a 3-day session, day 1, day 2, and day 3. So
you can choose to attend on one of the days?
No.
Or each day has its own package?
Each day has its own package. If you saw the program, each day has its own package. And we have made it half day 9 to 1 so that we don't keep you engaged an entire day. So each day has its own package. And also concentration drops if the sessions are really, really long. So each day has its own package, and we expect you to attend all the 3 days. Like I said, after this in January, we are becoming more strict, and the system manager Sharifa mentioned in her remarks, FIA is going to start issuing fines for the simple thing like registration through your regulator or through FIA itself. So please do take this seriously. Look at how we register, because you'll only have 2 months between November and December to make sure you can register. And the requirements are simple and it's online. It doesn't need you to come here physically. And one of the reasons we're having this session is people from upcountry were not able to make it. And I'm glad there's someone from Mbarara who's outside Kampala who's attending. So you're part of the people we really want to reach out to and take through registration and all the other compliance requirements that are needed. Okay, I don't see any other questions. Like I said, the chat is open. We'll have my colleagues from compliance take us through. Those asking how to register, we are going to go through the procedure during today's session. So I'll call upon my colleague Fiona. I think she's ready now to take us through the first part, the part that we jumped, that is the AML CFT presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ivan. Fiona, I'll be taking you through the compliance part of it, the AML compliance, what obligations that you're supposed to comply with as per the legal requirements in the law. And at this juncture, allow me to share the screen for the slides, which I'm trying to put up right now. Ivan, is my screen displayed? Are my slides displaying?
Yeah.
Yes, we can see them. Maybe you just make it. Yeah, perfect. That's perfect. Thank you.
All right, thanks everyone. My name is Fiona Nabagala once again from the Compliance and Outreach Department Directorate at FIA. And I am the Senior Training and Outreach Officer. So mine today is to take you through or to help you understand the legal requirements, or when we talk about the reporting requirements or the compliance requirements as per the Act. But before we dive into that, I'll give you a brief overview of what the presentation today will encompass, what I will deal with. It would be important for you to understand the mandate of FIA, which my colleague who spoke first talked about. Yeah, but it would be good for you to understand in depth what's our mandate and what we do, what are our functions. Then we shall dive into the concepts, the key concepts. What do we mean by money laundering and what do we mean by terrorism financing? Where are we coming from in terms of the international background or the international legal framework, as well as the domestic or national legal framework? Then we shall immediately dive into the compliance obligations, which is mainly why we are here, for you to understand your obligations, and then offenses and penalties. So as you're aware, some of you, as you're aware that the FIA was established under Section 18 of the Anti-Money Laundering Act to combat money laundering and terrorism financing. So mainly our mandate is to prevent money laundering and combat terrorism financing. That's our mandate as FIA. So to achieve this, there are certain functions that we embark on or that we perform to help us achieve our mandate. And one of them is enhancing the identification of proceeds of crime. So we have mentioned that we receive financial intelligence, analyze it, then we disseminate it to law enforcement agencies. So through this, we are enhancing the identification of proceeds of crime. What we are looking out for in this financial intelligence is to identify the proceeds of crime. So that also helps us to achieve our mandate on prevention. Secondly, we enforce, and I'm getting an echo.
So sorry about that. I'll request members, please keep your microphones muted so that we have a smooth session. Thank you.
So secondly, we enforce the compliance with the Anti-Money Laundering Act. And how do we do that is we conduct inspections to ensure that you are on track, or you are adopting the legal requirements as the law says. And in addition to that, we also enforce compliance through enforcing sanctions. In the event that you fail to comply, then we issue sanctions for non-compliance. So part of our work is to enforce compliance with the Act, and the reason why we are trying to train you so that you understand what your responsibilities, because if you know better, then you can do better. So that leads me to the third objective of us enhancing the public awareness, which is what we are doing now. Also, we collect information which has been talked about previously, and then we disseminate it to competent authorities. So in our work, we work hand in hand with competent authorities like BOU, IRA, and CMA, and many others. So also through the fact that we receive intelligence, financial intelligence information, and analyze it. In the process of doing that, we exchange that information to other countries based on the requests that come from other countries. So considering that money laundering is a cross-border crime, it can happen across the globe or different countries, since proceeds move from one country to another, are moved by the criminals. So there is need to exchange information as regards to the investigations and prosecutions of the criminals, or to track the proceeds of crimes. So in that, we exchange information spontaneously with other countries, and also conduct due diligence on entities that are to ensure that we have a safe and to safeguard the integrity of the financial system. So that at this point, it will be good for you to understand what is money laundering and terrorism financing. I'm sure many of you have heard of it. So I'll use the words interchangeably, where you hear me say ML or TF. ML will mean money laundering, and TF will mean terrorism financing. AML will mean anti-money laundering, and CFT will mean combating the financing of terrorism. So money laundering is mainly the conversion of illicit proceeds to give them the legitimate look. So trying to convert the illegitimately obtained proceeds to give them a legitimate look is what we call money laundering. Ivan, kindly help me mute that person. So terrorism financing is basically any act that is done in support of terrorist organizations. It could be financial or logistical support. It could even be as simple as providing food or accommodation to terrorist organizations. So in brief, any act that is performed in support or to aid the acts of terrorism or the acts of terrorist organizations is what we call terrorism financing. How does money laundering occur? It occurs in 3 stages, and one of them is placement. Then it trickles down to layering, and it is finally completed within the stage of integration. How does it happen at the placement stage? Here, money is integrated into the financial system. And it's a first stage where criminals integrate the money into the financial system. And at the point of layering, now the money is structured. Remember, the main objective of money laundering is to disguise the origin of the illicit proceeds. So through layering, now the criminals that are trying to structure the money through complex layers to ensure that the origin is disguised, or the source is disguised, so that the audit trail cannot be tracked. And eventually, now the criminal successfully cleanses the illicit proceeds to give them a legitimate look at the stage of integration. So at the integration stage, now this is when the criminal purchases, involves in activities like the purchase of luxurious goods or investments in real estate. So this is mainly a layering stage. This picture illustrates the different stages where money starts from the placement stage, then it's structured through the layering, and then finally ends, or it's finalized with the integration stage. In this picture, you would see that, as we have discussed, that money laundering is money obtained from illicit proceeds and trying to convert it to give it a legitimate look. You see now there's collection of dirty money from criminal activities. And what do we mean by criminal activities? We mean the predicate offenses such as fraud, tax evasion, human trafficking, drug trafficking, and so forth. So once money is obtained from such activities, now that's what we call illicit proceeds, illegal money, in other words, or dirty money. And that dirty money is now placed into the financial system, probably a bank, and which then the criminal tries to layer that money through using different complex structures, like maybe transferring it to offshore accounts to disguise the audit trail or to conceal the origin where the money was obtained from, which is a criminal activity in the actual sense. So then at the final stage, once the criminal is successful with disguising the origin, then the money is invested into real estate or purchase activities like purchase of luxurious goods. So that's what we call money laundering. Picture, it's slow, it loads, it takes quite some time to load, but what I'm explaining right now is exactly what is in the picture, a step-by-step process of how criminals launder money or how money laundering occurs. Are we together up to this point?
Yes, we are together.
So terrorism financing, it could have originated from raising funds. But however, the distinction between money laundering and terrorism financing is that for terrorism financing, money does not necessarily come from an illegal activity. It can come from a legal activity, as opposed to money laundering. Money laundering, strictly money comes from illegal activities. So for terrorism financing, money can be generated or raised from a business, a clean activity, or a business activity that is not legal. And then the terrorists place it into the financial system, and there's another stage where they plan to perform the act of terrorism. So the idea of placing it into the bank is to disguise the activity that they will use the money for. And then eventually the terrorists plan the use of the funds to commit terrorism, as you see in this picture. So that is what we call terrorism financing. FATF extended the scope or the coverage in terms of prevention of money laundering and terrorism financing to also cover proliferation financing. So, and with that, we also had to extend the scope as well. So as FIA, in the prevention of money laundering and combating of terrorism, we also combat proliferation financing because this directive came from the FATF. So what do we mean by proliferation financing? We prevent the manufacture of weapons of mass destruction or movement or transfer or export of such weapons. So that's what we mean by proliferation financing. In the act of terrorism, these two are interlinked, that criminals use this to commit terrorism as an act. So there was need to extend the scope or coverage so that we prevent proliferation financing as well, which I have defined as the manufacture, transfer, or movement or export of such technologies of weapons of mass destruction. So from when we talk about the legal framework as regards to money laundering, or prevention of money laundering and combating of terrorism financing, they can be classified into two. We have the international legal framework and the national or domestic, where national domestic is ours, our local laws. So from the international perspective, at least with this, you'll be able to understand where we are coming from, the backbone of our domestic acts or laws. And from the international perspective, it encompasses the UN conventions, as you see, the Palermo, Vienna, and the conventions on terrorism financing, on the suppression of terrorism, as well as the FATF 40 recommendations. So in fact, in the FATF 40 recommendations, there's a recommendation that says that we have to, countries that subscribe to the Financial Action Task Force have to adhere to the UN conventions on the Vienna, Palermo, and the suppression of terrorism to provide for the seizure of proceeds of crimes and the confiscation of such proceeds of crime, as well as sanctions. So in the international legal framework, we also adhere to the UN conventions because they speak to the suppression of terrorism financing and proliferation financing, as well as prevention of money laundering. Speaking of the 40 recommendations, the FATF 40 recommendations, this is also attached to the international legal framework that we are talking of, because even in these recommendations, they speak of the UN conventions. They drive the same agenda, in other words, the prevention of money laundering and combating of terrorism financing. So what is FATF? FATF is a Financial Action Task Force in full. So where you hear me use FATF, that's what we mean. And what is it? It's an international body that is responsibility of formulating policies on the prevention of money laundering and the combating of terrorism financing. So mainly this is the international body that formulates policies on the prevention of money laundering and terrorism financing. And there are jurisdictions that subscribe to this international body, of which Uganda is amongst those that subscribe to it. So just like you see UN, that different countries subscribe to it, it's the same. The same is applicable to FATF. There are different member countries that subscribe to this international body. So it works hand in hand with regional, what we call regional style bodies. That is, and in our perspective, we fall under the East-South anti-money laundering group. So FATF works hand in hand with regional style bodies based on the location of the country. So in Uganda, we lie under the East-South anti-money laundering group. And this is a group that conducts the mutual evaluations. It works hand in hand with FATF to ensure that they prevent money laundering and combat terrorism financing. So what the 40 recommendations encompass, they have a broad application on sanctions and countermeasures for money laundering and terrorism financing. Mainly what we mean by 40 recommendations, these are principles on the prevention of money laundering and combating of terrorism financing. An overview of what the 40 recommendations, what's embedded there. They provide for how shall we seize, should countries seize and confiscate the proceeds of crimes in the event that there is an act of money laundering or terrorism financing, and they ensure that money laundering is criminalized and terrorism financing. As we shall discuss later on, you'll see that in the recommendations, they are saying that every country that subscribes to the FATF has to ensure that their legal framework or their laws criminalize money laundering and terrorism financing as well. So the same recommendations provide for international cooperation. They recommend that countries should cooperate when it comes to prosecution of the acts of money laundering and terrorism financing. And how they do this is by signing treaties or MOUs with other countries to ensure the spontaneous exchange of information, which we discussed about as one of the core functions of FIA. So you'll see that what FATF, the agenda that is driven by FATF mainly is concerns or pertains the prevention of money laundering and combating of terrorism financing by providing these 40 principles, of which we are supposed to adhere to each one of them. We might not go in depth because there are many, there are 40. As you hear the title, 40 recommendations, but just to give you a hint of recommendation 1, it requires that every country has to assess the risks and apply the risk-based approach. What do they mean by this is the recommendation 1 requires that every country has to have an understanding of the risks that they are exposed to as a country. So how have we tried to adhere to this recommendation is by conducting the national risk assessment to ensure that we are aware or we have a full understanding of the country risks. And what the national risk assessment encompassed were the risks assessed per the sector to come up with an overview of the country risks, the threats and vulnerabilities. So in addition to that, FATF advocates for application of a risk-based approach, which here they mean adoption or prioritization of high risks, that in the event that you profile your clients, you're supposed to give high priority to the high risks and apply enhanced due diligence for those, and for the low risks, adopt a simplified due diligence. So that is what we mean by recommendation 1. Recommendation 2 is about national cooperation. So FATF is telling every country that subscribes to it that you must demonstrate national cooperation and coordination. And how this is assessed is by ensuring that, do you have any, have you established any relationship with the law enforcement agencies that you disseminate the information to? That is with us as a FIA. How do you coordinate with other supervisory authorities like BOU, like CMA, in the exchange of information, dissemination of information? So that's why Ivan mentioned that with the minutest thing, we shall be in position to enforce compliance, either through your regulator or us. So this is how we shall demonstrate to the FATF that we have coordinated with the regulators to enforce sanctions, because it's a requirement that we have to demonstrate national cooperation and coordination. So where we are coming from, or why are we telling you about the FATF, so that you understand that these things did not just come from the air and fall on you, they're coming from somewhere. Much as we are assessing your compliance, it's your compliance that helps us score as a country. And the reason why we are on the gray list is because of our non-compliance in a few areas that were highlighted, and different actions were recommended that we are supposed to undertake to close up the gaps. So as you comply, then it helps us score as a country in a whole, because when the mutual evaluation process happens, when they assess as a country, because mutual evaluation means the assessment that is done to assess our compliance levels as regards to the technical compliance and the effectiveness. So these recommendations, the FATF recommendations, are the benchmarks they use to assess whether we have adhered to each one of them. So as you see, confiscation and provisional measures, here they assess whether we have sufficiently provided this in our laws, which we have provided. And this explains why we have amendments here and there, because there are different gaps that were highlighted by the FATF in our laws that we needed to close. So we keep amending to ensure that our laws sufficiently provide for, or adequately provide for, what FATF says, since we are going to be assessed on them. So terrorism financing recommendation 5, the recommendation says that every member country has to criminalize terrorism financing, which we have done in our Anti-Terrorism Act. Provision of targeted functions, we have also done this in the Anti-Terrorism Act, as well as providing for financial sanctions related to proliferation financing. This has been also catered for in our Act. So FATF is saying from recommendation 5 to 7 that provide these should be provided for or sufficiently addressed in your laws, every member country that subscribes to it. The same for recommendation 8, which applies to non-government organizations. So in recommendation 8, it's saying that countries should make sure that the NGOs are not misused by terrorists to finance terrorism financing, are not misused. So, and that same recommendation provides for customer due diligence measures that the NGOs should undertake to prevent their entities from being misused by criminals for terrorism financing. Recommendation 9 is on secrecy laws. And in this, FATF is saying that no law on confidentiality can stop or can hinder provision of information to an FIU, that the right to secrecy cannot be used by any entity to say that you're not going to provide information because you have an overriding right of secrecy for your client as opposed to FIA. So FATF is saying that every member country that subscribes to it in their laws, it should provide that when it comes to investigations, that right is waived. You cannot plead that I have a duty of confidentiality to my client. This is confidential information, so I cannot give you the information. When it comes to any investigation as regards to money laundering or terrorism financing, that right of a client is waived. So you're supposed to provide for that information, meaning there is no secrecy, right of secrecy in terms of investigations on money laundering. So that's what recommendation 9 says. And on customer due diligence, this we shall also discuss in the requirements under the Act, because what is here is a replicate of what is in the Anti-Money Laundering Act. So by customer due diligence, FATF is providing for when we should conduct customer due diligence, the entities. These are part of internal controls that you need to put in place, as well as record keeping and how you treat the politically exposed persons. It also elaborates on the correspondent banking or correspondent relationships. In the event that you have other financial institutions outside the country with whom you have correspondent relationships, how do you deal with them? What customer due diligence do you do on those institutions before forming that business relationship with them? Do you get the AML policy for those entities? Do you ensure or satisfy yourself that these entities have adequate internal controls in place? So that's what we mean by, that's what FATF, that is what this recommendation is saying. It's giving us guidance on how to deal with correspondent relationships. And value transfers under recommendation 14, how to deal with the transfer of money for money value transfer services. Technologies, new technologies, this is in regards to doing a risk assessment prior to introduction of any new technology, and wire transfers, you obtaining adequate originator information and beneficiary information. Reliance on third parties, this is in the event that you hire a company to do customer due diligence for you. The recommendation says that the responsibility remains on you who has hired someone to do the customer due diligence for you, you who has brought in a third party. So this FATF is providing guidance that in the event that you bring in a third party to do for you the customer due diligence, obtain the information for your clients, adequate data as the law requires as regards to establishing the identity of your clients. How do you treat that relationship with your third party? That one, there has to be an agreement that clearly stipulates the obligations that this third party you have brought in board is going to do between you and the third party. And the data that they will collect is yours. You can assess it to your convenience, and also the responsibility in the event that there's any error, you're liable, it's not the third party. So this is the guidance this recommendation is providing in regards to relying, when we mean by reliance on third parties. Internal controls for foreign branches, what internal controls are you supposed to put in place in the event that you have foreign branches or subsidiaries? Recommendation 19 on high-risk countries. This recommendation gives us, enlightens us on how to deal with high-risk jurisdictions, the enhanced due diligence measures that we're supposed to undertake when dealing with high-risk jurisdictions. For example, frequent monitoring of large or unusual transactions, such measures. Then reporting of suspicious transactions. This recommendation highlights how the requirement of reporting suspicious transactions by the entities that report to FIA or any FIU. And it gives guidance that in the event that you form suspicion, you are supposed to report suspicious transaction. Tipping off under recommendation 21, this is an offense, which they mean that if FIA is investigating an accountable person and you alert the client that you're being investigated, that's an offense, and that is what we call tipping off under this recommendation. So there are many, up to 40, but an overview of the rest. They encompass the powers of supervisors. What powers does BOU have over you as regards to AML? And the Act also re-emphasizes that every institution that is supervised, it's the supervisor that has the responsibility to enforce compliance of the entities that they supervise. So IRA has to enforce compliance on AML for all the insurance players, BOU the same for the financial sector, CMA the same for the securities sector. And this recommendation highlights the powers that they have to obtain documents, to conduct inspections, to enforce sanctions, to issue directives in case of non-compliance. So that's, it highlights on the powers that the BOU has to enforce compliance under the Anti-Money Laundering Act. So the same recommendations, the rest up to 40 also highlight on the mutual legal assistance. How do we solicit for support from other countries when we are prosecuting any criminal, for example, that has transferred or wired proceeds of crimes to Kenya or any other country? How do we get back that those proceeds of crimes? How do we freeze or confiscate those properties or proceeds of crimes? How do we channel the assistance? It's through request from us, from the internal affairs of here to the internal affairs of the other country. So it also provides for, the recommendations also provide for extradition measures in the event that a criminal has been tried or prosecuted in Kenya and it's a Ugandan. How do we extradite the provision that we should be in position to extradite back that person to be tried in Uganda? And the same if a Kenyan is here, and the provision that that person can be extradited back to Kenya to be tried in Kenya, and also international cooperation. So that's what we mean by the recommendations. In brief, they provide for the internal controls that countries have to put in place to provide money laundering, they provide for sanctions for both money laundering, terrorism financing and proliferation financing, targeted sanctions, international cooperation, mutual legal assistance, powers of supervisors, confiscation measures, and so forth, as we have discussed. So that is the 40 recommendations, the international legal framework. Now, let me talk about the national or domestic legal framework, which encompasses of the Anti-Money Laundering Act as amended, or the Anti-Money Laundering Amendment Act 2022. It has been recently amended, and the Anti-Money Laundering Regulations, as well as the Anti-Terrorism Act 2022, which has also been amended recently, and the regulations as well. So for the rest of the acts, as per the sector, these just provide an insight on the definitions of the accountable persons as per the Anti-Money Laundering Act. If the act under the second schedule lists any entity that is an accountable person, so we rely or we base on the definitions of those entities as per the acts that establish them. For example, for the Capital Markets Authority, if the second schedule lists the securities, anyone dealing in securities or sale of stock, so we rely on the act, the CMA Act, for the definition of who is a stock dealer or a broker as an accountable person under the Anti-Money Laundering Act. For an insurance company listed under the Anti-Money Laundering Act as an accountable person, so we rely on the Insurance Act for a definition of what is an insurance company. So whoever falls in that definition is an accountable person. Financial Institutions Act, the same. Whoever falls in that definition as per the Financial Institutions Act is an accountable person. So the rest of the acts, pertinent acts, guide on the definitions of who is an accountable person as listed in the Anti-Money Laundering Act. So we have discussed how FIA does its work, and Ivan mentioned that there are different FIUs because under recommendation 1, it says that the FIUs should be put in place to administer the assessment of risks. So every country that subscribes to the FATF has an FIU in place. What do we mean by FIU? We mean in full, it's a financial intelligence unit, and in this perspective, FIA is the financial intelligence unit of Uganda. So every member country has an FIU. Okay, for example, there's one in Kenya, there's one in Tanzania, one in Somalia. So how for us as FIA we do our work, mainly we focus on the where, who, and from whom the money is coming from. We mainly track the movement of money to establish any suspicious transactions or any money that forms suspicion in regards to having been obtained from an illegal act or illegal criminal activity. And then upon satisfaction or satisfying ourselves that there was money laundering or this is illicit proceeds of crimes, then we disseminate that information to law enforcement agencies. So mainly ours is to collect financial intelligence. Where is the money coming from? Who is getting the money? And where was it originating from? Was it from a criminal activity? Such things is what we look at. So there are reports that you are supposed to submit to FIA, and this is what we call your reporting obligations or reporting requirements. One of them is the large cash and monetary transaction reports, the suspicious transaction reports. For the cross-border movement of cash reports and bearer negotiable instruments, these are reported by URA. And when someone is trying to cross the border, that declaration of cash, the forms that they fill in. So these reports are reported by URA. The international wire transfers, you're supposed to submit to FIA, and also the annual compliance reports and the AML policies. So we expect your AML policies to be submitted to us. And remember, failure to do this, we shall discuss the penalties that it attracts, a failure to report, to adhere to your reporting obligations or requirements. The annual compliance reports, I'm sure you all know that there's a template at the on our website, which you're supposed to fill as regards to your compliance. And you're supposed to, it requests for information on how you complied with each item that is on that, that is in that template. If you complied, how did you comply? If you did not comply, why didn't you comply? So for example, you'll see that requirement number 1 is registration with FIA as an obligation. So how did you comply? And we registered with FIA, and our registration certificate is registration number, blah, 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 the details. If you didn't comply, then you state the reason why you didn't comply. And mainly the template has the legal requirements that you're supposed to adhere to. So please pay attention as we go through each one of them down there. Then you will be in position to interpret the annual compliance template, because what we are going to discuss is what is in the template. So when you understand the obligations, then you'll be in position to answer that template, that when we say that ML audit, you're going to tell us whether you complied or you didn't comply. When we talk about a risk assessment, you having done a risk assessment, what do we do? So if you understand each one of them, then you'll be in position to fill in the annual compliance report. So the list of accountable persons, I printed on the list of accountable persons and I set the schedule. So we have advocates, NGOs, trust companies, casinos, real estate agents, dealers in precious stones and metals, financial institutions, firms licensed by CMA, insurance companies, register of companies, registrars of land, and all licensing authorities. So it's not only you, there are many entities that report to FIA, and mainly because these are channels that can be used by criminals to launder money or to manipulate the financial system. Of course, you would ask me, why isn't so and so not on the list, or why isn't this category of entities not on the list? As for now, we are guided by the FATF. They conduct a typology to determine the risks, depending on the evolving trends in the around the world that the criminals are using. So they study the trends that are used by the criminals, and they advise that these are channels that can easily be manipulated by the criminals. So you should add them on the list, and they should be reporting to you. So this informs the list of accountable persons in the Act. And of late, there's been an addition of the cryptocurrencies. So that's a typology that FATF studied, the trends that are moving on around, that what criminals are manipulating now, because as we think, the criminals are also thinking that, well, if you've closed the gates for these, then let's try elsewhere where the gate is open. So once the FATF realizes that the criminals have diverted to something else new, so that also they guide us on what we need to add on the list of accountable persons. So to explain, only who are here are those that can be used by criminals to manipulate the financial system. So now, at this point, we shall discuss the obligations, your obligations, and it starts with registration, which is the main reason why we are conducting this training. Ivan is going to take you through how to register on goAML with FIA. So the law requires that you're supposed to register with FIA within 1 year of establishment. So I hope most of you have adhered to this legal requirement, because it can attract penalties, failure to do so. Undertaking proper customer due diligence, this is very crucial. At the point of establishing a business relationship with a client, the very first step, or one of the key steps, is to profile your clients, because that is what will guide you on the risk-based approach that we talked about. When you profile your clients, then you're in position to know that these are high risk and these are low risk. So that way you can put in place appropriate mechanisms to mitigate the risks. If you identify that there's a politically exposed person that I'm dealing with, then you're in position to know that I have provided this person as high risk, so this will be my strategy, or this is how I mitigate this risk. So that is why this is important. Risk profiling is important. So what we mean by customer due diligence is you being in position to identify and verify your client. By identification, you need to obtain adequate information that provides you with the identity of a client, such as relying on documentation like the national ID, or obtaining information like the residence of a client, the name, date of birth. Such information So and you're supposed to verify such information to satisfy yourself that Fiona is actually Fiona. And how you conduct information, you rely on reliable independent data. For example, data in the NERA, or verification, or if it's a company, you verify with URSB as to the legal existence of the company and the directors or information of the beneficial owners. If it's a foreigner, then you verify through the immigration office. So that's what we mean by verification. So mainly customer due diligence has two aspects or components. You have to identify your client and verify your client. In addition to that, risk profile your client so that you know when to conduct EDD, enhanced due diligence, or simplified due diligence. So that's what we mean by undertaking proper customer due diligence. When you conduct customer due diligence, prior to establishment of the relationship with your client, or along the way, when you establish the business relationship with your client, because it should be done on an ongoing basis. You don't do it at the start and stop. This information is reviewed on an ongoing basis so that you detect. This is how you'll be in position to detect any suspicious transaction or to form suspicion if anything is not adding up to what was originally provided. So that's the rationale of continuously or doing it on an ongoing basis, and the law states so that it should be done on an ongoing basis. Verification of beneficial owners, I've hinted on this. The law requires that you're supposed to obtain adequate information on the beneficial owners, and in the sense that if your clients are companies or legal entities, you're supposed to establish who are the shareholders, or what is the control structure like of that company, who is the reason behind who are those people behind the company that have the control over the company. So those are the beneficial owners. In the first place, identify them. We have talked about identification, obtaining adequate information that establishes their identity, the national ID, their names, residence, telephone contact, address, things like that. That's establishing their identity. And then you go further to verify their identity. So that's what we mean by verification of beneficial owners in case of a legal entity. So you're trying to find out that you're dealing with the right people, and that the shareholders or those on the control structure are, even in the event that you find out that they are PEPs, then the law provides for how you need to deal with politically exposed person. So this is a rationale behind lifting the veil to find out that who is behind the company, so that you know that if they're high-risk clients, then I adopt enhanced due diligence. Even if they're not high risk, you still have to obtain adequate information on their identity and verify who they are. So a robust AML CFT program, this has 4 components. One is the internal controls, policies and procedures that you're supposed to put in place. These policies, I've spoken about you submitting your policy to FIA. You're supposed to have an AML policy that guides your roadmap on what controls that you're going to put in place as forex bureaus. So we expect those submissions to come through. And on top of an AML policy, there are other procedures that guide the implementation of the policy. For example, if your policy is talking about that this is how we shall obtain KYC, there could be a step-by-step guide or document in addition to that to guide how internally you should go about customer due diligence requirements, or know your customer, or customer acceptance policy, explaining that these are the clients that for us we take on, and these are the clients that we do not take on. So procedures explain a step-by-step guide on how you will implement what is in the policy. Another example would be if it's a suspicious transaction, that you have a provision in the policy that we shall report suspicious transactions to FIA. Now the procedures will provide a step-by-step. How do you report STRs internally? That it's escalated from the staff to this manager, and within the time frame of this, and then finally ends up with FIA. So another obligation is maintenance of records. These are supposed to be maintained for a period of 10 years. You're not supposed to destroy records. Yeah, and they're supposed to be maintained in a manner that they can be easily reconstructed. In the event that we requested for such information, it should be readily available when we are conducting an investigation. On inspection, we look at how your archiving documents, whether there's easy retrieval. So those are elements that we look at. And if we sense that the documents are not well coded, if we ask for a document and it took you a week, then you have not adhered to that obligation. Filing STRs, LCTRs, and ALCTRs, and wire transfers, international wire transfers. Another requirement, I don't know why these are coming in the presentation. All right, appointment of a money laundering control officer. This is a requirement on registration. You normally provide us with details on who is your money laundering control officer, like a contact person for FIA, and the law provides for the responsibilities of this appointed person. He's the one charged with the responsibility of reporting suspicious transactions and filing reports to FIA, as well as when you're escalating your STRs, this is the person you escalate them to, and he or she disseminates them to FIA. So he acts as a contact person between the institution and FIA. Training of staff, you are supposed to internally, the MLCO also has a responsibility of training the staff internally on AML CFT to abreast you of any developments of the law, in the law, or any regulatory information, that developments that have come up. So it's important that the MLCOs for different Forex bureaus organize the internal trainings, because on inspection, it's an area that is reviewed to see if the materials that you used were sufficient or adequately assess the legal requirements in the law. We review the training material that you relied on as an entity to satisfy ourselves that you captured everything, that the entity knows everything. And we also interview staff to assess the level of knowledge, their level of knowledge on AML. So please take on these trainings internally. If you do not have the capacity to train, you can request FIA to come and train. However, we cannot do it over and over. Once we train, then we expect that you take it on for your internal staff. And when we come for inspection, you'll be assessed to see the training that you delivered to your internal staff. So putting in place appropriate internal policies and procedures, we mentioned this. Requiring high standard of screening of employees is also a requirement, that prior to onboarding of employees, there's supposed to be a background check on the employees. It's also a good practice to prevent money laundering. Then undertaking effectiveness to test the controls. This is an AML audit. Every reporting entity is supposed to conduct an audit to assess the effectiveness of the controls. All these controls that we have talked about, due diligence, training, dealing with politically exposed high-risk countries. So the audit comes in to assess how well have you satisfied these legal requirements, and they highlight the gaps and make recommendations where you're supposed to improve. So that's what we mean by the AML audit.
Fiona,
So yes,
just a second. I was requesting if you could maybe stop sharing your screen and exit the presentation and then redo it again. So we see if these marks go off. Thank you.
all right.
In the meantime, if you have any questions, you can post them on the chat so that you do not forget them, and my colleague will answer. I think the one I'll draw her attention to is if you have to certify the certificate of incorporation before submission. I'll just request Fiona, when she gets a moment, she can respond to that. Do we have to certify the certificate of incorporation before submission? I think the screen is clear now.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
No, Ivan, you don't have to certify the certificate of incorporation before submission. You can just get us a copy. There's some verifications we do to confirm if you're legit, if the company is legit with URSB. So it's okay even if it's not certified.
Okay, I hope everyone has heard that. You do not need to send us a certified copy. Then someone is asking, what are TFs? She's hearing you say TF, I think AML, PF. So they want to know what are these terms. I think to you they are daily terms, but to some people they may be new terms. So AML, TF, and PF.
Okay, at the beginning of the training, I mentioned that where I use TF, I mean terrorism financing. Where I use PF, it's proliferation financing. And AML, anti-money laundering. ML is money laundering. CFT is combating the financing of terrorism.
Okay, she has explained those: anti-money laundering, AML, TF, terrorism financing, PF, proliferation financing, CFT, combating the financing of terrorism. I think some of these questions have been asked before. Can we get updated list of politically exposed persons such that we can update in our system? How do I check if I'm already registered online, just in case I don't remember if registered? Like I mentioned, go to the FIA website under the goAML tab. There's a list of people or accountable persons that have registered only on goAML. And goAML is the one, that's why we're having this session. It's what we'll be using to check our register of accountable persons. So after this training is done, you have 2 months, November and December, to ensure that you're registered on goAML so that you appear on that list. Majority of you are not on that list. About only 60 of you are on that list. Those who registered within September, I think, and I think October, I'll just update that. The team informed me they'll be updating the list and you'll appear there shortly. Yeah, so maybe I'll just also mention again, when you're joining, please mute your mic. Once you join, please have your mic muted. And also those who have not joined, who have joined us, Samsung, iPhone, One Name, Galaxy Note, please edit to show your correct name. If you're unable to do that, please send the name of your Forex Bureau and your name and the name of the Forex Bureau on the chat, because we are doing attendance. Okay, so I'll hand back over to Fiona to respond to the bit of accountable persons, asking how can we get an updated list of PEPs on a frequent interval such that we can update in our system. So Fiona, over to you on that one.
Thank you, Ivan. To answer your question, no, the responsibility is not on FIA to collect that information. The law clearly stipulates that the accountable person should have in place mechanisms to identify the politically exposed persons. Ours is to guide on what resources can you rely on to improve on your lists. For example, the media search, if you hear of any appointments through the media, the adverse media, the Google search can also help. The list databases like the lists at the parliamentary websites. So such information can guide you on who are the newly appointed senior politicians that we refer to as PEP as per the definition. Yes, so to answer the question, it's not the responsibility of FIA under the Act, because the Act clearly states that the accountable person, not the authority.
Okay, thank you, Fiona. Okay, thank you. You were adding something?
No, I don't know if I should continue with the presentation or there's any
Okay,
other
I'm just
question.
answering one more question. They're asking if this meeting is being recorded. Yes, it will be recorded and shared with you. But that doesn't mean that you exit the training and wait for the recording. Please attend the training, otherwise you may have a query which won't be answered in the recording. Okay, thank you.
So we've been talking about reporting obligations, and we mentioned that you're supposed to submit suspicious transaction reports and large cash transaction reports to FIA. So to explain in detail what we mean by this, any transaction of your client that's equivalent or more than 20 million shillings is supposed to be reported as large cash to FIA on a weekly basis. In addition to that, any aggregated transactions that equate to 20 million. For example, if a client transacts in bits, but when you add that money, it's equivalent to 20 million. A transaction of 20 million and above, it's supposed to be reported to FIA. So for suspicious transactions, we mean any transaction that is unusual or does not correspond to the profile of a client. I started with mentioning how crucial it is for you to profile your clients. This will help you to detect or form suspicion as to what is a suspicious transaction in the perspective of each, or in regards to each client that you have. Because if you know your client very well and you have profiled your client to be transacting a specific amount or within the range of A to B, then any transaction that goes beyond B, you'd be in position to detect that this is out of range, this is unusual. So that is what we mean by suspicion, you forming suspicion, and that transaction is supposed to be reported. So anything that is not in line with your knowledge of a client, in simple terms, is what we call a suspicious transaction, and it's supposed to be reported. It doesn't mean that suspicious transactions only refer to huge amounts. No, it can even be a small amount. Assuming I'm known to be transacting or exchanging money within the range of 50 to 100,000, then I'm starting to exchange between 5 million or even 1 million or 3 million. There's a huge difference. There's a huge change in my profile. So that's what we mean by any difference from your knowledge, any inconsistencies as regards to your knowledge of a client, where you know your client has been transacting in this range or in these amounts, and there's a substantial, or even if it's not substantial, there's a huge difference in the change of the transactions in which your client is transacting. So any inconsistencies in the knowledge, in the transaction information, as opposed to the knowledge of your client, is what can help you form suspicion. So that is supposed to be reported to FIA. Sorry, I'm trying to move to the next slide, and I think it has gone. Let me stop sharing and share again. So the red flags that can help you detect or form suspicion, I have discussed in summary that anything that is inconsistent with your knowledge of a client's profile can guide you on what amounts to a suspicious transaction or can help you to form suspicion. So any deposits or withdrawals of large amounts of money which significantly differ from the client's usual transactions. This is what we have explained, That's something that differs from a client's usual transaction can help you form suspicion, and hence you should report to FIA. Or several linked cash transactions that has less below, slightly below the reporting requirements. If someone, for example, transacts, like now that we are saying 20 million and above should be reported to FIA, and someone decides to transact like 19.999. So that can help you form suspicion that the person is trying to avoid that transaction being reported because they wouldn't want it to hit 20 so that it's reported to FIA. So such indicators can give you guidance on what amounts to suspicion. Depositing a large amount of cash and fixing about the reporting threshold, above the reporting threshold. Any amount that is reported above the reporting threshold can also amount to suspicion or any usual behavior. It's important that you take note of how your client is behaving. For example, if your client is hesitant to give you proper identification documents or asks you a question about the reporting requirements, that how much money is reported to FIA? If I made a transaction, what would be reported to FIA? So that behavior can give you a hint that this is a suspicious transaction. The person is trying to avoid the transaction from being reported, or any false identification information as regards to identification documents that should be reported as a suspicious activity. Any withdrawals without lawful purpose, you are required to obtain the reason with the purpose of funds. So if the purpose of funds is not lawful or does not correspond to the amount, someone receives some a huge chunk of money, and when you ask what they're going to use it for, the inconsistency in the information, what they are telling you is the purpose for the money, does not add up to the amounts that they are withdrawing or depositing. Transactions with several intermediaries, complex transactions from high-risk countries. So any transactions from high-risk countries, this would also amount to. This would help you or give you a hint on what forms suspicion. Or transactions made by persons or persons from high-risk jurisdictions or countries that have a bad reputation of drug trafficking or poor controls of money laundering can also help you form suspicion. If the client is coming from a country, a high-risk country or a blacklisted country, it can help you form suspicion, because for blacklisted countries, we are not allowed to entirely transact with them. If the client fails to provide proper identification, or in the event that you ask for the ID, we already talked about that. And if a client is talkative or about topics related to money laundering, I mentioned this on inquiries or reporting requirements, this can form suspicion. So mainly suspicious transactions, there's what we call a suspicious activity, which you can detect from the behavior of a client, and the transaction you can detect from once there's the client has transacted. So both the suspicious activity are supposed to be reported. That is a suspicious activity report, and the suspicious transaction report is also supposed to be reported. So under suspicion, there are two reports. There's an activity report and a suspicious transaction report. Transaction is when a client has transacted activity basing on the behavior of a client. So another obligation, you're supposed to monitor the transactions of your clients, regularly monitor for any unusual, large, complex transactions. You're supposed to regularly monitor. And the objective of this is to detect suspicious transactions, because if you profile your clients and you know that you have knowledge of where your client lies in terms of the risk profile, or through regular monitoring, then you will be able to form suspicion. So it's important that you regularly monitor the transactions of your clients to help you identify any suspicious transactions. So as you see, since I started with the risk profiling, when you're monitoring clients, what will help you in the first place is whether you assess the risk of your clients. And this is entirely based on the know your customer documentation. As the way your client approaches you in terms of the identification documents that they give you, what they do can help you profile your client, that if this is a politically exposed person, by virtue of them being a senior government official interested in a prominent position in government, therefore they are high risk, basing on the KYC information, the documentation that establishes their identity. So this will help you profile your clients. In the event that you obtain such adequate information on KYC, this will guide you on how to monitor your clients, because you will have known where to place who or where whichever client lies. So at the second stage of transaction monitoring, then you start looking at the thresholds. Having obtained adequate KYC and you know that this is how I profile my client, then you start looking at the thresholds in which they transact to see if it corresponds with the KYC information they gave you. If the KYC information says I deal in this business, and now at the transaction point, you're seeing the monies that are exchanged correspond to the nature of the business. So you see how the KYC is guiding you when it comes to the monitoring the transactions. And then from that, you're enabled to detect if there's anything that forms suspicion, then you pull out the documentation for review to see if it corresponds with the monies that they're transacting in, correspond with the information that they originally provided at the start when you were onboarding them. So with those three stages, then you're in position to resolve and conclude whether this client is suspicious or it's a suspicious transaction worth reporting or not. So that's what we mean by suspicious transaction monitoring. It starts with obtaining adequate information, know your customer, adequate KYC information that identifies your customer, then monitoring the transactions, looking at the transactions, the figures, amounts in which your client is transacting. And then if you detect anything out of range or any unusual or complex transaction, then you refer back to the information that you obtain at the start, at the onboarding stage. If it's inconsistent, then that's when you form suspicion and you're in position to report a suspicious transaction. Many of the obligations I explained in the summary that we started with, for example, the training and communicating policies we explained, and maintenance of records, which should be done for a period of 10 years. So dealing with politically exposed person, what we mean by PEPs is, as per the definition, these are persons that are interested with senior prominent positions in government. For example, the ED of FIA is a PEP, or the ED of any government institution is a PEP, because they're interested with senior prominent function in government. Senior parliamentarians, senior political officials are also PEPs. So what the law says about PEPs is that you're supposed to put in place measures or mechanisms to identify, or systems to help you identify the politically exposed persons, how you rely on important, relevant, reliable databases, you rely on adverse media. So you're supposed to frequently update your list of PEPs, because even when inspections are done, this is the list they will ask you for, to verify whether you keep a list of PEPs, and it should be embedded in your systems, in your database, to see that you refer to it all the time before your clients transact. So in addition, another mechanism in regards to PEPs, what the law says, you're supposed to obtain senior management approval prior to taking on business from PEPs. Not any tailor is supposed to transact with any PEPs before obtaining management approval from the senior management. Also, you're supposed to obtain information as to the source of funds or wealth of the PEP. So that's what the law says in regards to PEP. The customer due diligence measures that you're supposed to undertake. Obtaining accurate originator and beneficiary information. We discussed this under the recommendations, the VATIF recommendations. So I guess this is self-explanatory in the sense that you're supposed to obtain adequate information as regards to the name of the originator, address of the originator, and proper documentation, depending on where the transaction is initiating from. Also obtaining adequate beneficiary information when it comes to electronic funds or transfers. Undertaking a risk assessment. This is a requirement. We expect your risk assessment reports to be filed with FIA, because the law says that prior to introduction of any new technology or product, you're supposed to conduct a risk assessment to assess how that new technology or product will be manipulated by the criminals to finance terrorism. For example, the features that you look at for the product: is the product cash intensive? Does it allow use of huge amounts of cash? Does it allow anonymous use? Can anyone come and transact on behalf of the client? So those are the features that can guide you. Is the product likely to be used in other countries, like high jurisdictions? Is the product likely to be used by sanctioned countries? Does it have that wide application that anyone can use the product? So those are the indicators of risks that you need to rely on to come to a conclusion that if it's high cash intensive, then it's high risk. If it's not, then it's low risk. If it allows anonymous use, that any agents, it allows use by any agent, then it's high risk. If it does not, then it's low risk. So that's what we mean by a product risk assessment. And you're supposed to provide that report to FIA. But it doesn't stop at that. You're supposed to come up with controls that, okay, this is how we shall mitigate these risks. Enhanced due diligence measures will be undertaken, and this is how they will be undertaken. Enhanced scrutiny of clients, or training our team to have adequate knowledge on how to risk profile or onboard clients, something like that. So I'm trying to give you a picture of what we mean by a risk assessment report. It should have the inherent risks, the mechanisms of controls in place, and also the residual risk. Residual risk is after assuming that I have a risk of my product is highly cash intensive, and currently in our entity, there is a mechanism to address that. So the application of that control to this risk, and the risk is not fully mitigated. So that's what we call the residual risk. On the event that you apply the control to the risk, what remains that has not been sufficiently catered for is what we call the residual risk. So a risk assessment has ratings, weighting, the weights that I don't know how I would put it, but anyway, our expectation is highlight to us the inherent risks if it comes to the products, the features that I have mentioned, how you're supposed to assess the products, and the controls that you will put in place or you have in place. So that's what we mean by a risk assessment report, product risk assessment report. Then the general risk assessment report that you're supposed to do now must have the products, customers, and your geographical location assessed. Where the customers, now you're going to assess that these are the number of foreigners that we have as clients. These are the number of nationals that we have as clients. Or we do not have foreigners, all our clients are nationals. So that means your low risk, your client, when it comes to assessing that that risk factor, you're low risk. If you have foreigners that are more than nationals, then you're high risk. If you have few foreigners, then you're medium, something of that sort. So basically, customer risks as a risk factor, you will be assessing your customers as per the residents, whether they are residents or non-residents. It will guide you on whether they are high risk or low risk. Non-residents are high risk, residents, that means low risk. So you go to products, you do the same that we discussed for the product risk assessment. The features that you're going to look at is my product cash intensive? Does it allow anonymous use that I can send anyone to transact for me who is not a client? Does it have a wide use that any client from a high-risk country can use it? So that's what we mean, the product risk factor adequately assessed. Then you assess the geographical location. Is our Forex Bureau scattered? Do we have a branch at the border? Because the borders are high risk because of the ease of movement of money to other countries, the porous borders. So do we have, is the structure of the Forex Bureau, does it have different branches? We talked of layering. So if it has different branches, then there's a likelihood that the criminal can structure money through different branches of Forex bureaus to avoid tracking the audit trail. So if your Forex bureau is scattered, then it's high risk. If it's not, it's low risk. If it has a branch at the border, it's high risk. If it's not, then it's low risk. So the delivery channel, how are you delivering your products? Do you use any tech that the clients do not need to come to the physically to the bureau to transact? There's a use of mobile money app or something. So if you don't have that, then it's low risk. If you have that, then it's the vice versa. So the general risk assessment now gives us a picture of the customers, products, geographical location, and your delivery channel, 4 risk factors. So for the other product risk assessment that we discussed, you're only looking at the products. But in this one, all of them inclusive of the product as a risk factor. So when you see risk assessment, that's what we mean. If you find this in the annual compliance report, have you adequately assessed your risks? This is what they mean. If you have not done, then put you've not done so. If you have done what I have explained, then how you did it, and explaining, trying to satisfy to us how you complied with it. So that's what we mean by conducting a regular risk assessment. So we issue directives with this information that we normally review the sanction list to see any updates that have been there, have been put up by the UN's SCR, the UN sanction, the UN Security Council resolution. And we issue directives to accountable persons to act accordingly based on the amendments that I've made on that list, informing you on who has been blacklisted, who has been added on the blacklist, who has been removed. So we direct you to act accordingly. In the event that you have a client who has been sanctioned, then you're supposed to freeze those assets and report to FIA or hold any transaction. So mainly what we are saying is that the board intervention, the management of your Forex bureaus is very key to help you deliver these controls or these legal requirements that we are talking of as regards to compliance, because the tone starts from above. So you should involve your management because it starts from the top as it comes down to you. They're the ones they're the ones charged with the responsibility of approving like the policies that you will come up with a draft, and also allocate making decisions as regards to the controls or systems that you need to put in place. So the intervention of the management is very important. So the challenges that we encounter or the findings that we have found out on inspection is people do not implement, the entities do not implement the policies and procedures effectively. To some entities, the policies and procedures are there, but they're not effectively implemented. And this is why the sanction regime is in place to wake up people to ensure that they move up as per their policies and procedures. So inconsistent compliance reporting. Also, we've even noted that you have a responsibility to report to your senior management as regards to your client risks, or the entity risks. When you do that risk assessment, the findings of the risks that the Forex bureaus have or are exposed to, the senior management has to know that, look, these are the risks that we have to as per our risk assessment. So we've noted that there is no communication between the staff of the entities or accountable persons with the top management. Because for them, they don't know what's been down here. So reported to FIA, this is the metrics to make decisions. There's lack of integrated systems, depending on how big your institution is, much as FATF adheres to you putting in place controls that are consistent with your risk appetite or your risk profile. But the bigger the Forex Bureau, the bigger the risk appetite it is. So you need to have the systems that you put in place have to correspond to your risks. So if you are a small Forex Bureau, and you have, that means, and through your assessment, your risk profile is low. So the controls that you put in place are not going to be the same controls as put in place by a big Forex Bureau that might have a big risk appetite. So what we mean by commensurate controls in line with your risk profile, what we are saying is that do not put in place controls that are below your risk profile. If your risk profile is small, then the controls that you put in place must be able to mitigate that small risk. If your risk appetite is big, then the controls that you have must be put in place, must correspond to the risk that you have. So assuming I'm speaking in the perspective of a big Forex Bureau that has a big risk appetite or exposed to huge risks, we would expect that the controls also you put in place would respond to the risks. For example, the integrated systems. So we found that there is lack of integrated systems, because ideally, if you have the systems to detect, that will help you detect suspicious transactions. And there's a challenge of people not reporting suspicious transactions because of lack of these integrated systems. The manual detection is slow, and that's why there are few STRs reported to FIA, because people do it manually. And we've had a challenge of many entities saying, for us, we don't have suspicious transactions. It's because of the manual detection, as opposed to the integrated systems that frequently detect any unusual behavior based on the fields or the rules that you input. For example, if you had a system that and you input all the list of the PEPs, it would be able to flag for you that this one is a PEP. So it will be like a reminder for you, a check that you need to do a check here. The system has detected that this is a PEP. And if you input a rule, like any transaction that is above 20 million to be flagged. So if any transaction is done, then the system will be in position to flag that. So it helps you kind of like monitor the transaction monitoring. The systems help with the transaction monitoring. And we, on inspection, we have detected that there's lack of such integrated systems, and also for client screening and monitoring. Yes, I think that then that marks the end of the obligations. But now to do
before you go to the next section, we have a
Yes.
few questions that I wanted to bring across. And after we can have a short break, about 15 minutes, then we continue. Hope that's okay with you.
All right, no problem.
Okay, the first question is a former member of parliament still a PEP?
Okay. Can I answer that?
Yeah, please.
Former member of parliament is still a PEP, but ceases to be a PEP after a period of 3 years. Because within, as per the FATF guidance, within that period, the person still has contacts to the office that they held, so they have influence in that office. But after a period of 3 years, it is presumed that the office has taken new leadership entirely, and the person does not have any engagement, or even if they have any engagement, they may not have any influence as such over that office. So that's as part of FATF guidance principles.
Okay, thank you. Hope everyone has got that answer. And the next question is, are interbureau large cash transactions reported to FIA?
Interbureau?
Large cash transactions. Those are, because large cash is anything above 20 million. So if it's interbureau from one forex to another, is this reported?
Yes, it is. It's still a large cash transaction.
Okay. Probably someone is referring us to section 8, maybe. We'll come back to this one after the break. The other question is, let me see. Yeah, the presentations will be shared with you at the end of this workshop. Someone's asking if we can share with them suspicious countries. I don't know. I think there is a UN sanction. There's a list of jurisdictions that no, you take this, Fiona. Suspicious. I don't think they're called suspicious countries. I don't know the term. They're called what?
You don't think what?
They're saying, I think the term isn't suspicious countries. It is high risk. Is it high risk jurisdictions? But then there are also jurisdictions that are blacklisted. And then there are individuals that are blacklisted. But I think there are sites. Maybe you can just point us to the sites that keep this information.
Okay, I will share in at the end of the presentation. There are important sites that you can refer to. So in the slides that we shall share, they have the links.
Okay, but do we send them? Do we send them every month? I don't know.
It depends on any amendments that have been done. If there's no amendment on the sanction list, then we don't send. If there is any amendment, then we send.
Okay.
Sometimes it can even take 3 months when the amendment.
Okay, so these are sent through the association or to individual forexes?
To individual forexes.
Okay.
Those that have registered with us, because they are the ones that we have contacts, email addresses to send to.
Okay, so make sure when you're doing the goAML, but through the goAML registration, we'll be sharing this with you on the message board, so there's no worry.
Yes.
Okay, how do you deal with those records after 10 years? Do they cease to be useful? I think this is with regards to keeping records for 10 years.
You back up that information in soft. If you want to get rid of the records, you can get rid of the records, but it should be backed up in soft.
So even after 10 years, they are still useful.
10 years. Yes.
They are still required. Okay. How do I submit large cash? Very soon, which is something we are going to go through. It's part of the agenda. Okay. The recording is we are making the recording and to be shared with us all. Yeah, I'd like to request that their question, like we said, please send your questions through the chat. Then we'll have breaks where we'll allow for questions to be asked to the presenter, Madam Fiona. Just write them through the chat. Write them in the chat. I'll read them like I'm reading this now. There's a question on kindly enlighten more on the cross-border transactions for those bureaus that have branches at the border. And do we need to engage URA at any point? If I repeat the question, kindly enlighten more on the cross-border transactions for those bureaus that have branches at the border. And do we need to engage URA at any point? Fiona, you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, I hope you got the question.
Yes, I got the question, but for cross-border movement of cash, because the law requires that any domestic or foreign currency, even if it's a negotiable bearer instrument, which does not pass through normal banking procedures or the Uganda financial system, and which exceeds an amount of 30 million, it should be reported or sent across the national borders of, that is transported or sent across the national borders of Uganda, it should be reported. So the person intending to transport such amount is supposed to fill a Form C. That is in the Act. It's appended in the Act, Anti-Money Laundering Act. It's supposed to be filled, and the Custom Excise Department of Uganda, that's URA, is supposed to forward a copy of Form C to FIA. So that's how it happens. A Form C is supposed to be filled, and URA forwards us a copy. So whether URA is there, I have not been there to confirm whether URA is there, but I believe they are on the enforcement of this, because this is their mandate as URA to ensure that there is a cross-border reporting of cash. Yes, I don't know whether there's any clarification they need with that, but to answer her question, any cross-border movement of cash, whether if it's in domestic currency or foreign currency or any negotiable instrument, bearer instrument, is supposed to be reported. And what do you use to report it? It's Form C that is in the regulations of the anti-money laundering.
Okay, thank you, Fiona. Just to add on to that, this is reported by the individual moving the cash, not the Forex Bureau. Because the Forex Bureau is mainly exchange.
Yes.
It's by the individual moving the cash. Okay.
Yeah.
The last question is, how can I file an STR? Kindly share STR template. This is what we are going to go through. This is part of the training. Okay, so it's 21 past. We are going to have a short break of 15 minutes. So I expect us to be back at to be 36 past. Yeah, 36 past 11, 36 minutes past 11. So a short 15 minutes break, and then we resume. Please keep time so that we don't go beyond 1 p.m. Thank you.
Masereka.
Or no method endala. They don't use a whatever. I first downloaded Zoom. Naye bonna bo tebabinva.
Ndaba abantu bagamba you're using what?
Members, please put the mic.
Okay, welcome back from the short break. We are going to continue with the by Fiona. Just a few comments I've seen. One, let's see, we understand the SCR template contains sections for all accountable persons, including casinos, insurance, etc., which may not be relevant to forex bureaus and money transfer and money remitters. We request you to design a template that is user-friendly and relevant. I don't know what a SCR template. What is that? Cedric, maybe you'll confirm that before we respond. But we are still going to go through all the reporting templates today. And yeah, I think they are all friendly. I don't see any that will. Basically, the data required of you is what you submit. What's not required of you, you do not submit. As requesting, okay, fine. So I'll hand back over to Fiona. She has one clarification to make, then we continue the training. Maybe just to add on, for those who might have just joined us, please ensure you have you edit your name to that of your Forex Bureau. If you can't, then type the name, your name and the name of the Forex Bureau representing in the meeting chat, because we need to take attendance of those who have participated. And also, once you're on the, we request that you keep your mics muted so that we have a seamless training session. Thank you.
Thank you, Ivan. To answer the question about the SERs, yes, we also take note of that, and we are in a process of amending it so that for the Forex bureaus, the provisions that are not applicable to you are not there. So that is work in progress. We shall display an SCR template that does not have those that are not applicable to you. Wasn't that the only query? Okay, there's a clarification I needed to make about the interbureau reporting of large cash. And 8.4, they are exempted from reporting such transactions that are between the bureaus, the Forex bureaus. Transactions conducted on the account between accountable persons that are subject to supervision by authorities of government of Uganda, which is BOU in this. So they are not required to be recorded. So therefore, I make a clarification as earlier communicated that I beg to reiterate that they are not supposed to be reported, the ones between the bureaus, one from a Forex bureau to another Forex bureau. So moving on to the last section, which is brief, it will take about 5 minutes, is discussing the sanctions. Both we have the criminal and the administrative sanctions. The law gives us the power to administer sanctions in case of non-compliance. So that's under section 21. And for the administrative sanctions, this could be through issuance of directives or fines or causing the board or management to retire, or closure of the companies. So for the criminal sanctions, it could be through the penalties paid, penalties through fines and imprisonment, both for natural persons and for companies. Where for natural persons, it's imprisonment less than 15 years, equivalent or less than 15 years, or both, or a fine of 4 billion. So it's a fine of, in addition to the imprisonment, it can be either the imprisonment or both the fine and the imprisonment. So that's in contravention of section 3 and section 116. These sections define money laundering, what encompasses money laundering, the conversion, where there's any transfer of proceeds of crime, where there's a movement of proceeds of crime, physical deposition or transfer of proceeds of crime. So in the event that one has been convicted of money laundering offense, these are the penalties of imprisonment of or equal to 15 years and a fine of 4 billion Uganda shillings for a person. So in like case, 2 billion for a person and 4 billion for a legal entity. So you'll note that for a legal entity, there's no imprisonment because you can't imprison a company, as opposed to an individual where there's an imprisonment term of 15 years. So there are other offenses in the act besides the offense of money laundering. The offense of money laundering involves facilitating or conniving or being an accomplice to commit the act, or aiding or abetting. So that's the section 3 and 11. If there's any act of money laundering, that if you're found guilty to have committed money laundering as per the definition of money laundering, ingredients of money laundering in section 3 and 1.1, if an individual is found guilty of that, if a company has been implicated of that crime, then those are the penalties that it attracts. For the other offenses, as per the obligations that we've been mentioning, an offense of tipping off, an offense of failing to report to FIA the reporting obligations that we mentioned, filing an STR, an annual compliance report, large cash report, CTRs, wire transfers, and failing to put in place the internal controls that we have discussed, destroying records, failing to monitor transactions, all those. That's what we mean by other offenses. Failing to register with FIA, failing to monitor transactions for the PEPs, those are the other offenses. So for those, in case it's a person that has committed any of those, and is found guilty, an imprisonment of 15 years and a fine of 660 million or both. And for a company, in case they fail, for example, Forex Bureau A has not submitted suspicious transaction or has committed any of those offenses that we have listed arising out of the obligations, it attracts a fine of 1,400,000 shillings. And for any continued offense, if you continue the offense, for any day that it continues, there's an additional fine of 100 million. So you'll note that the penalties are huge. They are deterrent in nature. Mainly, these are to deter you from committing the crime. I'm sure you're all like, these are huge amounts. Where can a Forex Bureau get all this amount? So that means the only option you're left with is to close if failure to pay these amounts, if it's an entity. So you see what you're exposing the Forex Bureau to. And if you're taken on individually as a natural person and not a Forex Bureau for failing to perform those obligations because the investigations are done, and if the findings reveal that it's not the Forex Bureau that can be taken on, but rather the individual. For example, if there's a scenario where you aid or abet with a criminal, then you're taken on as an individual, not as a Forex Bureau. If it's a Forex Bureau that was a bit lax with the controls and let the money pass, the management, then they are taken on as an institution. So they are depending on the nature of the facts, the circumstances. There it would be, they would determine whether you're to be tried as an individual, as an employee, or as a legal entity. So that's what we mean by of the penalties for a natural person and for a legal person, depending in what capacity you're taken on. Thank you. In case there is any question, we can take it on. These are the websites that you can refer to for any references or any additional information. Please familiarize yourself with these. They have the adequate information that we have been discussing, the obligations that you will need. When you do, then you'll be in position to know your obligations in their entirety. Mainly, we refer you to our website because we keep updating information, the guidance notes on how to do things. There are things that might not they might not come out well through the training or through a one-time training that you need constant reminders or to refresh your minds about. So that's the reason for the website. We keep posting information, compliance obligations to guide accountable persons, because it's one of our key deliverables to ensure that we enhance your understanding on matters relating to money laundering and combating of terrorism financing. So please familiarize yourself with the website, and it's through that channel that we communicate any development. I would urge you to go there and add the FATF website as well as SMLab. I will also add on to this the link for the UN sanctions that you should constantly monitor to check on the updates and the amendments. Yes. I hand over to you, Ivan, unless there's any other question.
Yes, a question here.
Hello?
Yes, please.
Yes,
Fiona,
yes.
we do not see your screen if you are sharing it. Maybe you stop sharing and share again.
Hello.
Yeah, is there someone asking a question?
Yes, I'm having a question.
Okay, please ask.
Yes, I wanted to get some clarification about the penalties of the accountable person.
Banka yonna neyo
Ivan.
Okay. Let me see. I think Fiona, just go through the last bits that of the slides.
I saw it raining for
I saw it raining frogs.
Ivan, someone is talking.
Are you sure?
Okay, please let's mute. Let's have our microphones muted if you're not speaking. So Fiona is just going to show the parts of the slides that were not displayed when she was presenting. In the meantime, I'll also be sharing the questions. SCR, let me see. Okay, there's one here. Sometimes you send the information to the organization's user. If I can't access it because I forgot the organization's username and password, what can I do? We are going to have this session on registration. So we'll be answering all these regards to the system. We'll be answering them. Any other question? I think they were saying the screen wasn't being shared. So Fiona will just quickly recap quickly. Then the website, share the website. She's going to recap that. Missing organization username, and no, we are going to go through that. Yeah, so just a brief recap, Fiona. I think that is what they will request, and then we move. Thank you.
Thank you, Ivan. So I was discussing the penalties, the sanctions. The law mandates FIA to issue or enforce sanctions for non-compliance. And we have two categories of sanctions. We have the administrative sanctions and the criminal sanctions. So for the administrative sanctions, these are in form of fines and also disqualifying a board or management of an institution, as well as issuing directives and warnings to a company that has not complied. For example, we could demand if you have not submitted information, maybe the reports, we could demand that you submit the reports within a specific time frame. Or if we have done an inspection and noted the gaps, we can demand that issue a directive that you respond to the gaps within a specific time frame. Failure to do that, then we indicate it will attract a penalty of this. So that's what we mean by directives and warnings for the administrative sanctions. For criminal sanctions, this is in the event that one has been successfully prosecuted for having committed the crime of money laundering and other offenses. By other offenses, we mean the failure to comply with the legal requirements as regards to the obligations that we have been discussing. For example, failure to submit a risk assessment report, failure to file an LCTR, suspicious transaction, or SCR, failure to submit a product risk assessment, failure to register, failure to put in place internal controls, failure to monitor transactions. So that's what we mean by other offenses. So for a failure to, for breach of section 3 and section 111 or 116, section 3 is on prohibition of money laundering, which mainly discusses what encompasses money laundering, that in the event that one converts or transports or transmits property knowing to have been suspected that such property is proceeds of crime, then you have committed the offense of money laundering. Or where there is concealment or disguising the source or location of movement or ownership or rights or property, knowing that that property was proceeds of crime, that is money laundering. So the penalty that attracts would be an imprisonment of 15 years or a fine of 2 billion shilling or both. So section 3 and 1.1, they talk about the ingredients of money laundering. That what are those things that we can say that you have committed money laundering, and when you commit such things, then you attracts a penalty of 2 billion or imprisonment of 15 years. So for legal persons, that is for companies, it attracts a penalty of 4 billion shillings. So you'll note that there is no imprisonment for companies because you cannot imprison a company. So the same applies for companies, where a company, as per the definition of money laundering, where the company converts, transfers, or transports money, knowing to have reasons to believe that that money was proceeds of crime, then that penalty applies. Or where the company conceals or disguises the true origin, location, or deposition or ownership of rights or property known to have been proceeds of crimes, then that is money laundering, so it attracts a penalty. Or where a company acquires or possesses or administers property, knowing to have reason to believe that at the time of receipt of that property, it's known to have been property or arriving from proceeds of crime, then that's an offense and it attracts 4 billion shillings. Or where the legal person assists another person to benefit from the known proceeds of crimes. So that's an offense, and for a company, it attracts 4 billion. So the same applies. What I'm telling you, the same applies for natural person, where they do that. So which we can say that amounted to money laundering. So it attracts the penalty of 2 billion for an individual person and 4 billion for an entity, depending in what capacity you are convicted. If you are convicted in an individual capacity, it attracts those penalties. If you are a company, is the one convicted as a company, then it attracts the 4 billion. So other offenses, I've discussed what we mean by other offenses, and for a natural person in that perspective, it attracts a penalty of 660,000 million shillings and an imprisonment of 5 years or both. For legal persons, it attracts a fine of 1,400 million shillings. And if it's a continuing offense, for every day that the offense continues, you add 100 million shillings for every day. If you continue the offense like today, on Wednesday, you add 100 million. If you continue on Thursday, that's 200. On Friday, that's 300. Like that for every day that the offense continues. For example, if we ask you to provide something within 5 days, and you failed, that every requirement day that you have failed to comply, it continues by 100 million on top of the 1,400 million. So that's what we meant by the offenses, Ivan. And penalties.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other? Okay, asking what do you mean by currency points? I think this is defined in the Act. I think each currency point is at 20,000 Uganda shillings. So if they say 10 currency points, it's 10 times 20,000. That would be the count. Okay, that's right. Okay, so are there any questions for Fiona before we let her go? Thank you so much, Fiona, for taking us through the AML CFT presentation. I hope it has been beneficial for members. Before we get into our last item of the day, since we have exactly 1 hour, which is registration on the goAML system. So are there any questions for Fiona before we let her go? But she'll still be available anyway throughout the 3 days. If there are any questions, we'll still refer back. All right, so I think we are done with that section.
Thank you, Ivan.
Thank you too. All right, so we are done with the remarks, the MLCFT presentation. We had the break, we had the introduction earlier. So we are now just left with the registration on goAML, of which there will be some reactions. So we believe in the next hour by 1, we should be done with today's session. So I'll request you all to go to our website. Let me see if I can share my screen too. You go to our website, just type FIA Uganda in your web browser. If I'm moving too fast, I'll request that you type in the box so someone can unmute and then say we have left them behind. So I hope you can see my screen. Let me just have a few responses, then I proceed. My screen is visible. Anyone to confirm that you can see my screen?
Yes, we are seeing it.
Yes, I can see it.
Yes, you can see.
Thank you, thank you, thank you all that have. At least I know there are people now online attentive. All right, so just go to the FIA website. If you don't know it, you can just type FIA Uganda, just like that, in Google, and then you come to our website. Okay, yeah. That's how I was saying my voice is low. I hope it's better now. Those who are saying my voice was low, I hope it's better now. Yes, they can see the screen, and I hope my voice is better now. Okay. So on our website, I just want to bring your attention to 2 things. One, under the news area, this is the circular I've been speaking about. I'll just open it. I hope you can still see it. So if you go to our website, let me just go back.
Go back a little bit and see where you clicked.
Let me go back.
You
So
went to
news,
home?
no news.
News, okay.
News,
Okay.
and then
Thank you.
click on news again. And then you'll see this circular here on electronic registration. So I would interest you in following up on this. It was issued on 29 September, and it's the reason we're having this session for the entire sector to ensure that no one is left behind. So basically, it's just talking about the legal basis of registration, which my colleague Fiona spoke about. And I believe many of you, or if not all of you, are registered with FIA with a manual certificate. And now we are saying we are now moving to electronic. And like I mentioned earlier, over about 65 of you are registered now on the system electronically. So we'll be issuing you with e-certificates. For those who are not, we'll have to register between November and December. Please register on the system, because effective January, you'll be deemed non-compliant with registration. So register on the system as soon as you can. I shared the requirements with you. So I'll just get, maybe Fiona is still on, she'll confirm if we still need Form 1 and 3. But I think they will be required, including the certificate of incorporation, the letter introducing the people who will be accessing the system, the license, active license of BOU, and national ID for nationals, and passports for non-nationals. So we are just saying if you're manually registered with FIA, you are going to be electronic. You have to electronically register on the goAML system, and the e-certificates that you will get will take over the physical copies. And those who are registering for the first time, you will just get the e-copies. Yeah. And take note of this. There are penalties in case that you do failure to register. Once a deadline is issued, attracts these penalties. So any queries or anything you can ask during this training, or you can send to compliance at FIA, compliance@fia.go.ug for any further queries. So any questions on this circular before we now go to the bit of registration?
My question is,
yes, please.
From Interlink, Ninja for Experience.
Yes, please.
You're giving us 2 months in which to complete the e-elect registration.
Yes.
But it requires a valid Bank of Uganda license.
Yes.
But what if this is a period during which Bank of Uganda is processing renewal? That means you don't have a valid license. What do you do? I don't know whether you got my question correct. The 2 months that you have given us could be the window period when we are processing renewal. What do you do?
So when for example, yourself, when does your certificate expire?
It is expiring
sorry, license.
on the 25th.
December.
It is expiring on the, yeah, exactly.
So register within November to avoid that, because we want to take a valid certificate at that time.
Okay.
Yeah, so please don't wait for the last minute. Register now once it's valid. Actually, that's the more reason you should register now. Otherwise, if you wait for it to expire and you register, then those will be issues. You'll have to get clearance from BOU, you have to get, and then that will have to be written to us, etc. So now, once it is valid, please do register. Don't wait for it to expire. So utilize the time before it is. And like we said, the process is online. There's no need for you to come physically to our offices. It's just your time that is required to do the registration. Any other question? Thank you for that. Any other question? Okay, no other questions. So okay, I see one in the chat. How do we register? It's what we are going to do now. How do you access e-certificates? They will be sent to you. They are so they will send to you on successful registration. They're sent to your email. And I'll just show you a snapshot of how one looks like after you're done with the registration process. Any other questions? We'll be moving slow on this part so that we don't leave anyone behind.
Hi, Ivan.
Yes, please.
Kindly take me through how you go to the circular. I'm on the website right now.
It's under news.
Under news, eh? Okay, under news, okay.
Yeah, news, and then you click on the news, and then you'll find it there.
Okay, I've seen it. Thank you.
Okay, requirements for registration. We shared these earlier. I'll share them on the chat. So that, okay. I'm going to share the requirements on the chat, requirements for registration. Hi, Ivan, how are all staff required to register? Because we have new ones at the branch. We are going to look at that as part of registration. Those of us who registered before have never seen an e-certificate. How do we generate them? We will generate those for those who are registered with us on goAML. They will be generated for you. If you've never registered on goAML, they will be generated and sent to your email. So for everyone, they will all be getting e-certificate. Okay. There's someone that keeps drawing on the screen. I may have to change the rights, but let's move. Okay, so let me see if there are any other questions. Was registered before, I haven't seen now is, yeah, everyone will get. If you're registered on goAML, they will be generated for you. If you've never registered before on goAML, still it will be generated upon your registration. Okay, so let's move to the next part since I don't see any other questions. So once on the site, you can now click on goAML test environment. On our website, we have goAML, then goAML test environment. The website goAML test environment. So it should bring you a page like this. I'll just give everyone a minute to get to a page like this. I'll just give everyone a minute to get to a page like this. So if I get 10 people on the chat saying they are all on this page, then we move.
I am there.
The number you have dialed.
We are there.
Already on the page?
I'm there.
Sorry, Ivan, I just wanted to bring to your attention. Since yesterday, we've been finding issues with the one-time password, which usually comes on the email. Before that, it was fine, but since yesterday, it's been having issues. Is it a general problem or it's only us who are facing that?
So Shamir, you're a bit ahead of us, so we'll get to that part later. Let's first handle the registration.
Okay, that is fine. Okay.
All right. Just allow me to handle this. Just someone keeps drawing. That's the issue of when you don't have people naming, so you have some distractions. So let me just handle this and we continue. That's resolved now, so we can proceed. So after you've clicked on FI Uganda, you can come to our website. And once you're on our website, under the menu item goAML, you come to goAML test environment. Don't go to reporting because we are going to do training. So you come to test environment and you should have a page like this. Okay. So let's move now because majority are there. Kindly mute your microphones. Kindly mute your microphones so that we have a smooth session. All right, so once you're In the test environment, you just see it's highlighted. This is the test environment. So you scroll down and click on register. So that is what we are going to do for now is registration. So you go to register. So once you click on register, you have a page like this. So if I have 10 people in the chat saying they are at this stage, then we move.
I am there.
Very good.
I am there.
Good. So I think we are there. I'll
I
just
am
give
there.
I'm also there.
great, great,
I
great.
am there.
Great. All right. So 1 minute for those we might be leaving behind.
Yes, hello.
Yes, please.
Yes, I'm there too.
Okay, great. So just a minute for anyone we have left behind, then we move. Yes. But I think everyone is there because that response is positive. So we move.
Yeah, we can move.
Okay, so at this stage here, we are going to register as a reporting entity. Don't click on supervisory body, don't click on stakeholder, don't click anything under user. Just on register an organization as a reporting entity. So you click on that and you'll get a page like this. Okay. So I'm going to go through this page slowly. So there's a question that there are people who registered, the people who registered last time, can they repeat this process? Yes, they can. If you want to try it out, you can repeat the process. There's no harm. But if you're comfortable that your account is there, then no need to repeat. Okay. So if registered previously on the test environment, it's not mandatory for you to go through this process, but you can still go through it just as a recap. All right. So the organization type, I think, is money and currency changer. And then, okay, one other thing, I know some of you operate 2 licenses, one for Forex and another for money remittance. So we'll have those who do 2 types of licenses, you're going to have to register twice. You register first as a money and currency changer. And then the other is, I think, money and value transfer service. So you'll be required to register 2 times. So the process we are going to go through first will be for money and currency changer, but you repeat the same process to register as a money and value transfer service because they are tracked differently and you have 2 different licenses for Forex and for money remittance. So let's go to money and currency changer. And this is the name of your Forex. Those who find me slow can go ahead because it's straightforward, but we can also move together. So acronym is the short name. So I'll put that as my short name. And then this is the email of the institution. There's someone who's still behind. So I'll just go back a bit. So once you've logged in here, you just click on register. Make sure it reads goAML test environment, then you go to register. And once at register, you pick reporting entity, register an organization, reporting entity. And this is the form we are on now. Okay. For money and currency changer, this is the organizer. So it's money and currency changer for Forex. And if you're doing money transfer, you have to register twice, first as money and currency changer, then secondly as money and value transfer service. So this is XYZ financial institution. Acronym is a short name of the institution. And then here is the email. Please put an actual email of your institution that you will have access to.
Excuse me, please.
Yes, please.
On the name you put, let me say Verizon, you put Verizon Financial Institution.
No, put the name of your Forex Bureau.
XYZ, then.
Don't copy mine. Put your name of the Forex Bureau. Yeah. Don't put financial. The name of your institution, the name of your Forex Bureau.
Okay. Then on the acronym.
It's not required. It's just a short name. If you have an abbreviation for your Forex Bureau, then you capture it there.
Okay.
Excuse me.
Yes, please.
Yeah, I'm using my phone for Zoom, so it's kind of giving me hard time. Is it okay if I register later, like when I'm with the laptop? Because it's giving me hard time to register using my
It's
phone.
okay as long as you follow, but would be good if you could, because tomorrow we'll move ahead to another bit of it. So it's always good if you fail to do now, maybe by close of day, you should try and have yourself registered.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, all right, so this is the email. XYZ, that's the emails. Please don't copy what I'm putting in, put actual information for your institution, okay? So we can leave is financial. And tick is financial. Then the SWIFT, these are for banks. So here you can say not applicable, NA. So for this one, you can copy what I've done, not applicable. Incorporation number, I'm sure if you're at your Forex Bureau, you have this, it's usually pinned up to know that you're registered. So you can put there your incorporation number. So you can just obtain that and then indicate it there, incorporation number of the Forex Bureau.
Where do we get that incorporation number from?
From your certificate of incorporation. Okay, commercial name.
Excuse me, Ivan.
Yes, please.
Now, for us, our certificate of incorporation doesn't have a number. It only has the date.
Are you sure?
Yes, it's of 1997.
There's a number attached to it.
No, it has FX something. FX something.
No, FX. I know it has a certain number. There's a number attached to it.
FX
Well,
FX
I'll check. I'll check.
Just check the certificate of BOU.
If it's not there, what do I do?
No, it has to be there. FX something.
No,
FX
the number is always there.
It has to be there. Unless it is fainted out or something. But if you do not find that,
having the certificate up.
Excuse me, Ivan.
Someone is saying you can get it from the URSB site. If you search for your company. Yes.
Excuse me, Ivan.
The number is last 2022 or 2021.
I think members have to be very keen on this. Some are going to confuse it with the license, Forex Bureau license number.
Exactly.
Those
So
are
this
two
is the
different,
certificate of incorporation. The title is certificate of incorporation. That's
because
where your incorporation number is.
I had someone saying FX. FX, those are license number from BOU.
Yeah. I got it, yeah.
Maybe I should take note of that.
Okay, thank you, Hussein. Is there any other question? I see a hand up.
I was saying,
yes, please.
I think new incorporation numbers were issued because if I look at my certificate of incorporation, the number was 999 something something. But one time I was trying to access my annual return on online, and URSB gave me another number also starting with 8,000 something something. So
Yeah,
many
those are the
numbers
new
that they've
ones. Those are
indicated.
the new numbers.
And
they're being
they're the
issued.
ones which are required.
Yes,
So
if you
I
can
think,
get the latest, the better.
Those are, yeah, exactly. So maybe those ones who are talking of not having one, I think URI issued the latest
URSB
incorporation numbers. Yeah. That's
okay.
My submission.
Okay, thank you. All right, thank you. Brian has shared something on just click search and
hello. Hi, Ivan.
Yes, please.
I've seen the certificate of incorporation. So I think I should register it with okay, so I've got it.
Yeah, so I think this is a site he has shared on the chat. I'm just doing a test to see whether I can get this one. What you put on Swift, just put NA. It's not applicable, so put NA. It's a bit slow. Okay, we move. Incorporation legal form. Most are private limited. Private limited companies. Incorporation, but if it's a sole proprietorship owned by one person, you can also indicate that. But it's a private limited company. Majority are private limited. Incorporation city, those who are in Mbarara, Kampala, you indicate that. Arua, I saw Arua somewhere, where the company was incorporated, where the Forex Bureau was incorporated. Incorporation state, that is not applicable, so we leave that blank. Incorporation state. Country is automatically picked. It's Uganda.
Sorry, Ivan, what do I put on commercial names? The
same.
The same.
Unless you have a different one, it's the same. Then incorporation legal form, most are private limited, but you pick the one that is applicable. Operation city, where was the company incorporated? Operation state is not applicable. Incorporation country is Uganda. Name of holding company is not applicable. This is if it's a group of companies.
Ivan, please slowly, please.
Okay, where did I leave you?
Name of holding company.
Name of holding company? That is not applicable. That's if it's a group of companies.
Okay, contact person.
The MLCO. I hope you know what MLCO is.
Not really.
It was part of Fiona's presentation. So money laundering control officer, the contact person of the FIA at your institution, the Forex Bureau money remittance company. So one has to be appointed during registration. I believe majority of you have appointed. So I think I searched for Standard Chartered and you think I can't see. The incorporation number is here. And so thank you, Brian, for that. So you can just search on the site that he sent and get your actual incorporation number. And even the business type is here, private, limited, and so forth. Most are private limited companies. So thank you, Brian, for that. So website, if you have a website, you put it here. Yeah.
So not applicable would be a proper answer if I don't have the website, right?
You can leave it blank. No need to put not applicable. You can just leave it blank.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, the address, this is where you're located. Please pick work. Majority of you on buildings, so you can just put Chiseka building. Then maybe Chiseka Road or Chiseka Street. So that is your physical address where your Forex Bureau is located. The city is, of course, Kampala. And that is all we need on the address.
Ivan,
Yes, please.
kindly take me through the URL.
That's a website. Do you have a website?
No, we don't.
Then you leave it blank. URL is website, Universal Resource Locator website. If you have a website, you input. If you don't, you leave it blank.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, so after address, we have the phone. Same thing, pick the contact type, work phone. It may be a mobile phone. Our country prefix is 256. And here you put the number. The actual phone number. So it's contact type. No need to choose personal because it's all official. So work, mobile phone, country prefix 256, and the phone number.
Ivan, the contact number, is it supposed to be for the contact person or the office number?
This is for office. Now we're looking at the institution. As an institution, what is the contact? You can click this plus if maybe you have a mobile and a landline. And instead of mobile, this time you choose landline. Please don't copy the numbers I'm using. Put your actual numbers, I'm sure you know them. So you don't have to have two. If you have one, just put one. Either it's landline or mobile phone. I've just done this for example purposes. Okay, so we are done with the reporting entity. Once you're finished, you scroll up and go to administrator on your left. Once you're done with reporting entity, scroll up, go to administrator on your left. And now let's capture. Now this is now the individual, the MLC or the administrator. Okay. So if you're more than one person from the Forex Bureau registering, only one of you will submit at the end of it all, because only one registration is required, but we can all go through the process together. Okay. Information is saved automatically? No. It is saved at once when we are submitting.
The moment after we register, we click to submit or to save.
We are still going through. You're still going through. Just follow the steps we are going through. After you've finished, here you scroll up. We are now done with reporting entity. That's the organization. We are now going to the administrator. So you click administrator. Okay, so we start with the username. So username format is up to you. You can use your name, but it has to be one word. You can use your first name or your last name or a combination of your name or an abbreviation or your staff ID, but this is a username, one that you won't forget. Okay, username and password. So that one is down to you. Someone is asking the contact person. That's the MLCO here. Don't copy mine, but that is the MLCO. Okay, if you don't know the MLCO, please find out, or you can put yourself for now. But contact person is the MLCO or the MD, someone FIA will contact. Okay, so back to administrator, username. Your choice could be your names, short names, or combination of both, but has to be one word, or your staff ID, so it's up to you. So don't forget your username, don't forget your password. I'll repeat that. Don't forget your username, don't forget your password. So you put your username and password. Title is Mr., Mrs., Doctor, Professor, not required really, but you can include them there.
Kindly go slow because we are trying to create passwords here that we shall not forget.
Okay, so let me pause there as you go.
And the usernames.
Okay, so let me give you 4 minutes for that to create them and note them down. No, you can't use 2 people in the contact persons. We only require one, and who's the MLCO. Someone is asking organization ID. We haven't done anything to do with organization ID. We were registering a reporting entity, which means you went to a wrong page. Make sure you go back to register. Once you click register, pick register reporting entity. Don't go to users. No. Register organization, register reporting entity. If you're seeing organization ID, then you're on the wrong page.
Okay, yeah, I'm ready.
My question about the email. Can I use the Forex Bureau email, or I have to use my private email?
Use an email you have access to. If you agree to use the Forex Bureau email, it's fine. If you agree to use your personal one, it's fine. But remember, this is your account. If you left the Forex Bureau, this account won't be used again. It will be disabled and they create someone else. But depends on how you want to do it. You can, yeah.
Preferably, it should be my personal email.
Preferably, yes. But you have to agree internally as management or with management, and you agree. But for now, we just want you to understand the gist. The rest you can agree internally. So we have the first name, last name, the email. The email should be, don't copy mine, should be an email you have access to. The gender, the date of birth. Date of birth, just click here. You can either go through the years quickly here, pick the correct year, month, and day, or you can type them in. The format is month, day, year, month, day, year. So it's down to you how you want to do it. Okay. And you can pick it from there. Then we have the NIN. We verify this information. So make sure you capture the correct NIN during registration. So I know people have to look for their NIN. So let's give them a minute for this part. Now, for nationals, capture the NIN. If it's a non-national, no NIN, you put NA. But you make sure you capture passport details, okay? For a non-national, NIN isn't applicable, so you put NA for not applicable, but make sure you capture your passport details. Someone was asking what's NIN? It's your national ID number, national identification number.
I used to name, but my passport number is required in red.
Your what?
My passport number. Say my passport number required is in red, meaning it's
because you picked the passport country. Did you pick the passport country? Once you pick the passport country, it will expect a passport number. So the thing is, just scroll up just above Uganda, click that space to remove the passport country. Just above Uganda, click that space. Remove the passport country. Once you pick passport country, it will require a passport number. For nationals, the NIN is sufficient. So occupation is your profession. Banker, economist, IT, those professions, lawyer. So that's the occupation. ID number, we are providing a passport and NIN, so no need to capture ID number. Passport number is for non-nationals, so you just capture your passport number and you put the country. Okay, but this is for non-nationals. So non-nationals will put here NA and they capture their passport details here. ID number is not required. Someone asking if you registered during the training, should I register again? It's up to you. We can go through the exercise together. Or you can, you remember your credentials and you wait for the next step. But it would be good if you refresh yourself. Should the email addresses differ than the first email provided under administrator? Yes, emails are going to be unique. So you can't have two people registering with the same email, okay? So the company email and the administrator email can be the same, but then going forward, the emails for other people who will be registering cannot be the same. It has to be unique. We'll find out, we'll see why as we go ahead, but it's for security reason because we verify when you're logging in. We send a verification code, so the emails have to be different. Can we use refugee ID? I think this is a question we'll pose to our compliance before we close the session. What is NIN? So can we? So yeah, refugee ID and for NIN, can you use refugee ID for NIN number? No, NIN number is NIN number, refugee ID will be different. I'll just have to confirm again with compliance. I don't know if we have anyone from compliance. If I compliance on, they can confirm for us. Don't know, Betty, are you on? Just to confirm whether we.
Yes, I'm on.
Okay, I thought it was Betty this side. Okay, fine. I think I saw my colleague Doreen on. I don't know. Doreen, are you on? Just to answer this query of the refugee ID, if you are taking refugee ID. Okay, I'll get them to respond on Form 1 and Form 3, but Form 1 and Form 3 will be required once you're uploading. So I'll get them to respond on refugee ID. Before someone is saying, Ivan, sorry, you said, yeah, emails for this first time registration, they can be the same. They can be the same emails for the organization and for the administrator, but preferably they could be different. Since the administrator is a personal account, but they can be the same. There's no problem. What I was saying is when other users are registering, they can't have the same emails. So you can't have the organization email for the administrator, then for user 1, user 2, as we will see going ahead. They have to be different. Okay, so the next bit, you should be able to do it. It's the same as we were doing before. This is the address. Let's use the same address as the Forex Bureau for the administrator. And then the phone number. So everything should be green here at this stage. So we have captured the company details.
Even can we go back a little?
On administrator?
Yes, well, from the city, we're going down to the contact numbers.
Yeah, phone numbers.
Is this phone number supposed to be a personal number or still office? Still on office?
It's a number they can reach the administrator on. So if you have an office line, you can put your personal mobile line. You can put, but as long as you can be reached on it, yes. That's the number I would expect there. But majority put their personal numbers. So let me just give you a minute to complete this section.
I'm done.
Someone has raised their hand, yes.
Mr. Ivan, I'm Changani from Victoria.
Yes, please.
Yeah, this reporting entity, when I go back, incorporation number is required. It is not, it's showing red. It is not showing green.
Did you capture it?
No, because we have incorporation number, we don't have it, no? The certificate is old.
Do you have a certificate of incorporation?
Yes, please. But there is no number on it.
Okay, we had said you go to this website that Brian had shared on the chat. And you can search for, I can even search, you said, is it Victoria?
Yes, please.
So come back here. I think it takes a bit of time. There are so many records. Yeah, so you see Victoria Forex Bureau, here is your incorporation number. So you've seen your incorporation number, just search for it. That is, I think it's this first one. So everyone has an incorporation number, whether it's whatever time you are registered, there is an incorporation number. And the one you provide is the one we verify here. As simple as this to check if it's an actual company. Okay, there's a question. Even Midland, help me check. Someone says it's lost where we are. We are still on the system. We have finished registering the reporting entity. We have finished entering details on the administrator. We're now moving on to attachments, but I was just checking corporation numbers for your colleagues. But the link has been shared on the chat. So Midland, you can also search. So as we wait for the one of Midland, everyone should have green here. And after that, you can move to attachments. Can move to attachments, and this is where we'll expect those, I think there are about 6 attachments. Your BOU license, certificate of incorporation, national ID of the users, the nomination letter, the Form 1 and Form 3, which you download from our website. I'll just go to our website and show you where they are, I think. Let me see, there's a question here. Those whom we have lost to this stage have to clarify where they lost from. Completely from the reporting entity administrator, because we are now at the tail end. So you need to tell us at what stage we left you. Okay.
For the attachments, it means we have to scan and attach.
Yes, for now, for this session, you're not going to attach anything. I just wanted to show you how it's done. But for now, you're not going to.
Kindly take us to what is
So Midland
license, certificate of incorporation.
Like I said, I'm going to note them down for you. Okay, let me note them down now.
That means if I'm using my phone, I can be able to load the attachments.
It's okay, but for the test environment, they are not a requirement. This will be required for the production environment. But for now, if you have, you can attach. There's no worry. There's no harm since we are testing.
Hold up a bit. What do you mean by for the test environment?
This is a test environment for training.
I thought
this is not the actual environment.
Oh, so where shall we go for the actual environment is which one?
We'll share with you the link. Don't worry.
Will I have crammed all this? That means I have to screenshot, otherwise I'll get lost along the way.
We have a tutorial on our website. We are going to share this video. So you go through again, see where you are lost, and then retrace and register.
So meaning if I add my attachments and I wanted to just upload, it wouldn't work still.
It would work. It would work. It would work.
It would work even if I attach them on the test environment.
Yes, the environments are similar. It will work. It's just that this one is for training and the other one is for actual submissions.
I really want to submit it.
I also really want to submit. I thought I was doing it once and for all.
No.
Let me tell you, we shall forget.
That's why we have a tutorial. We have a tutorial on the website of how to do this. This is part of training we are taking you through. We are going to have the video. So even if you say you've forgotten, you can always retrace the steps through those 3 minutes. The video, this training, if you whatever you recall from it, and also the the documentation on the website.
You know what, me, let me go ahead and submit now, because going back means me forgetting everything.
But remember, this is a test environment.
Which attachments are necessary? Upload.
It's what I'm typing down for you. But we'll still send this to you on email, our requirements that we have.
So where do I go if I want the real environment?
It is still under goAML, but still your application won't be approved currently until the end of this training. So that would mean after Friday, you can now make a new application on the system.
Wow. I swear we shall have forgotten.
No, you won't.
Myself, I will have forgotten.
Someone asked Hope Forex Bureau. There you are. I hope you're seeing the requirements on the chat.
Ivan. Hi, Ivan. I'm calling from
Yes,
High
please.
Packet Bureau.
Yes, please.
The logins of administrator, I still have red showing. I don't know what could have gone wrong.
You click on administrator where the red is, and then look through.
Yes.
You'll see the field with the red. You automatically see it.
It's showing me the first logins, the username, my passwords.
In red.
Yeah.
Username is one word. If you put a space, then it won't work. Like the way you see mine. Mine is john.do.
Okay.
So it should be one word.
Okay, that's okay. I think it's corrected.
But I'm not seeing the requirements in the chat.
They're on the chat. Just that some people were typing as I was typing, but look, I labeled them. There's 1, 2, 3. Just look to the chat. I labeled them 1, 2, BOU license, certificate of incorporation, letter of nomination from your executive, national ID for nationals, passport for non-nationals, Form 1 and Form 3, which can be got from our website. So if you come to our website and how to register, about FI, how to register, you'll see Form 1 and 3 here. And this is how they look like.
So there are just 6 attachments. Huh?
Yeah. So Form 1 and Form 3, download them from our website.
Okay.
And I don't know that you're seeing the forms on my screen. I have to share.
No, I'm not seeing the attachment.
We're not seeing the attachments.
The attachments.
No,
the
requirements,
attachments,
actually. The requirements.
The requirements are in the chat. Check the chat. The requirements are there.
The chat at the moment. I'm in the chat.
Or maybe I sent them to some. Yeah, I sent to everyone. Someone asked if they can generate certificate of incorporation. I don't know. That's a URSB query, and I can't answer that.
Please take us back.
Yeah, so I was just
So
showing you.
I'm not seeing the requirements in the chat. You sent maybe to a single person.
Oh, I sent to waiting room participants. Oh, why did it do that? Okay, let me copy them again quickly. Sorry about that.
I want to have a question. We've already registered with goAML, but I'm not on the list. So I've tried to register now again. It is saying
Like I
the
said,
email is
which
already registered.
institution is that? Like I said, those registered in October. I think you're not on, but it will be updated by
But very
close
long.
of the training.
And a year back we registered, if I'm not wrong, but I'm not. When I try to do it now again, it's saying this email is already in use. That means I might have already registered.
You registered on the test environment. The people who are on the site are those who registered on production environment. So did you register on the production environment?
No, I will try that one also. Then if there is anything, I'll do.
Okay. I'll share the link for the production, but the process is the same. So can everyone see the requirements on the chart? BOU license, certificate of incorporation, of nomination from the executive, national ID for nationals, passport for 9 nationals, Form 1 and Form 6. The
No,
Forex
still on
Bureau
the
will
chat,
use
it's
money
not
and
this
currency
thing.
change.
Ivan, what
Yes.
is Form 1 and Form 3?
These are what I
What
was
is-
telling you. They are on our website. So if you go to our
Okay.
website, let me just take you back. If you go to our website, sorry. Sorry, let me just get. Yes, if you go to the FIA website, about FIA, how to register, then Form 1 and 3, you download them, and this is how they look like.
Ivan, is your Swift on the forms? Left.
No, the forms are accessible on our website. So if you go on our website, about FIA, how to register. The process is there, but we are changing this to guidelines. In the guidelines is where you see the web process, but we'll adjust that. But Form 1 and 3 are here. You download them. And when you download them, I was showing you how they look like. It's a document. Yes. No, seem to have, oh, I seem to have closed them. Let me open them. So that's how they look like, Form 1 and 3. Form 1 is the organization. Form 3 is money laundering. So this you fill in and you also attach. Okay, so I want to take us back to the system. So once you're done, everything should be green. Attachments is what we have been spending time on. So if you just attach the files, you can attach one for test purposes, but it's not required for this session. But just to let you know, the attachments, click on them, and then they'll list here. And once you're done, you click preview and submit if everything is green. So can I take any questions, anyone we have left behind, because we have reached the end of registration. So registration.
Hello?
Yes, please.
Hello. Yeah, I'm still behind on attachment because mine is not showing the green icon.
So which one is red, reporting entity or administrator?
I'm seeing on administrator.
If it's red, go to where to click on administrator if it is red and look for where the red is. For example, if this is wrong, it will show, it will be red. And then you go and make the necessary change.
Where do I go for Form 1 and Form 3?
On the
It's under-
website.
Yes, I'm on the website.
About
then
FIA, how to register.
About how to register.
And you'll find Form 1 and 3 there.
Okay.
Hello.
Yes,
Hello?
please.
I want to know about the invitation letter. How about it?
Which invitation letter?
This other option of what? This check.
Sorry, come again.
About it is also a requirement, but it has letter on it. It is a letter.
Nomination letter.
Recommendation letter. Nomination letter. Where do I get it from?
That is your head of institution, your executive director, the head, the boss of the Forex Bureau has to write a formal letter. No.
If it is the boss registering, so does it?
Then he writes indicating himself.
To himself.
Yeah, he writes indicating. The letter is addressed to our executive director, and is nominating and saying these are the people who will have access to the system. So it's a letter.
Okay,
It's sort of
thank you.
like, yeah, it's a letter to our executive director saying, as this Forex Bureau, these are the people would want to have on the system. 1, 2, 3.
So it is addressed to FIA?
Yes. For us to confirm that the institution has nominated these 2 or 3 people or 1 person.
So what makes it authentic? The stamp or the signatures from the boss?
The signature.
Or the stamp of the company?
Stamp and signature, and then you scan it. But we'll do a follow-up just to confirm.
Okay, thank you so much.
All right.
Ivan,
List of documents is not on the
how
chat.
come I cannot print this Form 1 and Form 3?
You cannot what?
I can't print Form 1 and Form 3. They are saying your margins are pretty small.
That's an IT issue.
It's possible some of your content will be cut off.
Open it in Microsoft Word. That's an IT issue, unfortunately. So you just have someone your end there assist you. So do we have to
read me through your website so that I can access the Form 1 and 3?
Just go to Google, put in FIA Uganda, and it will bring the website.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, let me go through the questions. More about number 3. Letter of nomination. Okay, we have answered that. Ivan, let me take you back first. Forex Bureau, we use money and currency changer. Yes, money and currency changer only. If you have a money remittance, you do registration twice. You finish this one, submit, then you register again, but the next time as money and value transfer service. We just fill in the forms. I don't understand that question. Is it Form 1 and 6 or 3? Form 1 and 3. After tapping on attachments, administrate an attachment, what do you do after that? You submit. For those who are done, just click on preview and submit, put in this code that comes and then submit.
What, Ivan, I already.
Yes, please.
I already closed up that.
You didn't submit.
Submit.
You're supposed to submit.
Submit.
Please let's move together. Don't close or leave this page or do it until we go through it together. You're not supposed to close the page.
Ivan, we are first of all submitting without those documents, or?
They are not required. This is a trial, a test. They are not required. Yes.
Okay, so we basically submit
I was
what
just
we
showing
just
you what
presented.
Yes, I was just showing you what the requirements would look like if you submit, but you do not need to attach any for this trial or training or test.
Okay.
So just capture the code here and then submit once everything is green.
Okay, no worries.
I think I made a mistake. I must have closed the page.
Then you have to repeat the entire process. But don't worry, you can do it later after the training.
Wow.
Okay.
All right, there's a hand which is up.
Ivan, Mr. Ivan.
Yes, please, I hear you.
Hello. Yeah, I'm Chandani from Victoria. But when I submit, because I already have a certificate.
When you submit, what happens?
When I put the code and submit, please choose another surname. Username.
Please choose a what?
Please use another username.
Okay, that means the organization is already registered. So for so I'll have to share with you your
e-certificate.
No, that means we'll have to this for the test environment. We shall have to send you your credentials. You recall them? So anyway, for those who submit and it says the organization already exists or the email already exists, that means you registered with us again. So tomorrow, first thing, we'll have to share with you your credentials, and then you try and log in. If you know them, if you've forgotten them, then we'll assist you. But those whose submissions are saying that they already exist, please log in tomorrow about 8:45 so that we assist you. Once we start the training, we won't be able to assist you to log in. Okay?
Okay, sir.
Yeah, so 8:45, those who have registered before and have forgotten their credentials and they're trying to submit now and it is failing because it's saying the email exists, organization exists, kindly log in before 9, that's 8:45. I'll activate the link then so that we assist you. Okay.
Excuse me, Ivan. When I try to submit after putting in the code, it brings company something that is already in use.
That's what I've been explaining. That means you've attended a training before and you've gone through this process before. So that means your credentials are already there. So what we'll need tomorrow, let me repeat this again. Those who it says credentials already exist, organization exists, or company already exists. I'll activate the link at 8:45 tomorrow to assist you, reset your credentials. Those who know their credentials, no worries. Those who don't, we'll reset for you tomorrow morning so that you can log in. Okay?
This is the error, Ivan. That's come. Organization name in use, choose another
Exactly
name.
what I'm saying. That's exactly what I'm saying.
Okay, so 8:45.
Yeah, please log in so that we help you reset.
We log in here the meeting, or we log in?
Yeah, meeting. The meeting ID. Just like you did today. Do the same tomorrow so that we help you log in. 8:45. Can one person be nominated as an accountable person and no? MLCO is one person. But if compliance is on, it's a question I'll ask them. But what I know, it's one person. But I'll have compliance also available at 9 a.m. tomorrow to respond. I think there are 2 questions. Let me just note them down. There was one of refugee ID. One of refugee ID and another of can a person, countable person, more than one person be nominated? Okay, let me just track the questions. So those, how many have submitted successfully?
I have submitted successfully, Asian.
Okay, that's good.
I've submitted successfully. Thank you, Ivan.
You're welcome. What file formats are acceptable when submitting? They are shown when you're doing the attachment, I think.
Hi, Ivan. Can I submit later? Because I completely shut the page.
It's okay.
What website
But
do I
make sure
use?
by FIA, go to the FIA website.
Okay.
Under goAML, choose goAML test environment. Remember, we're doing training, so choose test environment.
Okay, so I should submit not later than what time?
Today. Or before 9 tomorrow.
Before 9 tomorrow. Okay, let me do this now.
All right. What file formats are acceptable? I think Word documents, PDF documents, pictures, all those are accepted. I'll failed to trace form 1 and 3 on the website. Just go to our website about FIA, how to register. At the bottom, you'll see form 1 and 3. On our website, about FIA, how to register. And then you'll see form 1 and 3 at the bottom. List of documents still not on the chart, they're there. Form 1 and 3, you fill them in and they're part of the attachments. This question of how are we going to submit it, they'll be part of the attachment. Because we are going strictly online now, no more physical submissions for registration. Once already using the system, do we have to do the registration again? No. If you're already registered and using the system, no need to register again. But this process was just a refresher for those who have been trained before. Nomination of executive. So do we have to fill that form? Where do I don't get that one. I need to log in on attachment. Okay, I think all questions have been answered.
Simon.
Yes.
Ivan,
Yes, yes, please.
Yeah, when I attachment files, it is showing select files, but nothing is there.
No, click select files and search for the files on your desktop.
Oh.
You must have the files on your computer. Okay, so once you've entered this, then you click submit new organization, and you should have something like this. So all of you should have this screen. Those who are successful and should have this screen. Those whose registrations were rejected because companies already existed will assist you tomorrow morning.
Ivan, kindly avail your contact address in the chat if it's possible. Thank you.
All right.
Ivan, they are asking me whether we should save the password.
Save? Who's asking?
Meeting ka Zoom ninyo na to cover.
Hello, someone was asking about the password, yes? Okay, it's 1:15. Let me see, as per program. I think we are done with the registration bit. After registration, you will receive an email confirming that your registration was successful. And then you can log into the system once you've received that email. But we'll look at that tomorrow. So for now, once you have this page that shows your registration has been submitted, then you're okay. You're good to go for day one. Okay, any other questions?
Yeah, contact, please, Ivan. Thank you.
Yes, please. Sorry, I didn't. Yes, you can submit without the attachments. This is a test environment. You can submit without the attachments. When you submit, that's it. Yes. Once you have a page like mine, yes. Okay. Yes, you cannot submit until everything is green on the left. If anything is red, click on the red and solve that issue. Okay, I think all questions have been attended to. Due date of registration. Like I said, make sure you register before the start of the year. If possible, do it this month to avoid last-minute hassles. Following up on, can I try to learn again on test environment later? Yes, environment is still open. Someone's asking for contacts. Yes, we'll share them. Okay, any questions before we close the call for today? Any questions? All right, so we are done for today. We'll start tomorrow, same time, 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. Thank you for your participation today, and look forward to resuming the session with you tomorrow. Have a good afternoon.